Time is 6 o'clock p.m. It is Tuesday, July 19th, and I'm going to call the special city council meeting to order. Would the city secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell.
Here.
Rizzo.
Present.
Ellison.
Present.
Flores-Cale. Bradshaw. Here. Parsley. Here. Tobias.
Here. All right, 6 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak? Seeing none, citizen comments is now closed. Next up, executive session.
Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. The City Council may convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics. 1, pending or contemplated litigation, or to seek the advice of the city attorney pursuant to Section 551.071, meet and confer update, personnel matter. 2, possible purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate pursuant to Section 551.072 to deliberate the purchase of real property for public purpose, downtown property acquisition. 3, personnel matters pursuant to Section 551.074, appointment of Planning and Zoning Commission members. 4, convene into executive session pursuant to Section 551.087, Texas Government Code to deliberate regarding the offer of economic incentives to one or more businesses prospects that the city seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city. Project Shamrock.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. There was no action taken during executive session. There will be no action taken now. A motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned. I'm going to let the tape roll over for a couple seconds, then we're going to start our regular meeting. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:04 p.m. It is Tuesday, July 19th, and I'm going to call this regularly scheduled city council meeting to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the city secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell.
Here.
Rizzo.
Present.
Ellison.
Present.
Flores-Cale.
Here.
Bradshaw.
Here.
Parsley. Here. Tobias.
Here. All right, all members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments period. Next up, approval of the minutes.
Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve several minutes here. It'll be the regular council meeting for June the 7th, regular council meeting minutes for June the 21st, the minutes for the 25th of June, also city special meeting July 5th, and regular meetings for July 5th of 2022.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, that we approve the minutes. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Next up, citizen comments period. At this time, we ask anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on any item to please do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and that you direct those comments to the mayor and council. We also ask that you fill out a citizen comments form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. I have one registered to speak, Ms. Vanessa Westbrook.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Westbrook, and I am the treasurer for the the Kyle Buda Kiwanis Club. And I'm giving you an announcement and an invitation. Tomorrow is National Hot Dog Day, in case you didn't know that. And to celebrate National Hot Dog Day, the national headquarters of the Kiwanis challenged all of their clubs across the country to do something to support Hot Dog Day. So we are going to have a free hot dog lunch tomorrow, and everyone is invited, especially the mayor, councilman, city staff, to come over to the AMVET building. The complex is located at 401 Veterans Drive. Veterans Drive. I love saying Veterans Drive. Y'all know why. So please come and join us from 11 to 1 tomorrow for a free hot dog lunch. We want as many people to come out as possible. We're going to have sponsors of the Rotary Club from the area, the Kyle Buda Kiwanis Club, the AMVET Group, and the Lux Suds Car Wash. So please come join us for lunch tomorrow from 11 to 1, again, on Veterans Drive at the AMVET complex. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward and speak? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments period. It is now closed. Next up, agenda order. Is there anyone who wishes to propose to move any of the items? All right, seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 7, presentation, city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'll start off by reminding you of our budget workshops. Our next budget workshop is next Thursday on the 28th, where we'll present the city manager's proposed budget for your review and comment. Next up is the road bond program workshop. That is this Saturday, the 23rd. That meeting begins at 8. Moving forward, I'd like to bring Victoria Vargas up to talk about the South Central Regional Roundtable. It's this Friday.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Victoria Vargas for the record. On this coming Friday, the Texas Downtown Association will be hosting a regional roundtable here at the Krug Center. So this is a networking opportunity that they invite all of their members to, and we are going to showcase our downtown, but more, we will be showcasing what our downtown will become in the future. It will consist of, they'll start at 9 o'clock with welcome remarks by our Mayor Pro Tem, and then Will, Amber, and I will be hosting a brief downtown walking tour for about 30 minutes. And then we will have Tommy Kozarek from BGK Architects discussing our downtown master plan with the group, followed by Benito from Parks and Trails, who will be talking about the city's trail system. And then we're also, the city of Bernie is also joining the presentation, so they'll be talking in the afternoon. If you would like to attend, you can let me know and I can get you registered. You have any questions? No? Okay.
All right, next up is Rachel Sonier to talk about our boards and commissions openings.
Hello, Council. Rachel Sonia, Interim Director of Communications. So our council for our applications for boards and committees is open until August 31st. Terms will begin on October 1st. We have currently openings for the Art Committee, the Planning and Zoning, Parks and Rec, and our Library Board. So lots of great positions for lots of great people. Yeah, and if you want to apply, just go to citykyle.com/BC.
Thank you, Rachel. Next up to cover just about everything else on my report is our Parks Director.
Nice.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mariana Espinosa, Parks and Recreation Director. So we have a fun weekend coming up this weekend, starting with Friday. We have our dive-in movie at the James Atkins Pool, starting at sundown, and registration is available online. And then Saturday morning, bright and early at 7:30 in the morning, we will start our guided trail tours. The tours will run from Waterleaf Park to Lake Kyle Park. And then at 10 o'clock, we will have the official ribbon cutting of the Button Wildflower Loop bird viewing station, which was made possible as an Eagle Scout project from Troop 812. And that will be at 10 o'clock this Saturday. And then on Sunday, we have our July is Parks and Recreation Month free swimming at the James Atkins Pool between 12 and 2. And then we come back with a really fun night on Monday. We have our final Music in the Park on Monday featuring Move-In Melvin Brown. He is an international tap dancer and singer who performed at our market day last year. And by popular demand, he is coming back to close out the month for us. And then wrapping up Parks and Recreation Month next weekend, on July 30th to July 31st, or the final weekend of July, is our overnight family camping events, Stars at Night at Lake Kyle Park. And registration for that is also available online. So that wraps up those events. And then just a reminder for the Pie in the Sky Save the Date. It is a one-day event this year on Saturday, September 3rd. And we have confirmed the entertainment schedule as far as bands go. So featuring this year's entertainment schedule are the bands Broken Arrow, LC Rocks, Art Tijerina and the Jukebox Preachers, Gerard Gomez and the Conjunto Bandits, and Kyle Park will be on stage this year as well. So that's Saturday, September 3rd. It is free to the public to get in. The website is located online at pieinthesky.com, and we will update the website as information becomes available, especially as they pertain to our pie-related activities. And then our final reminder is for our ribbon cutting event on Sunday, September 11th. It will be at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 10, so it's 9 o'clock in the morning. We will celebrate the opening of Heroes Memorial Park, and more information to come on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Next up is Library Director Paul Phelan to talk about our summer reading program.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Paul Phelan, Director of Library Services. So we're just about to finish up our summer reading program. We have a few more cool events coming up at the last of this month. This Thursday, July 21st at 2 p.m., we have the Japanese origami with Yasu Ishida. That's a very fun program. This Saturday, the program will be Explore Time and Space, like Doctor Who. That will be from 11 to 1 p.m. Have a Doctor Who watch party, various crafts and different things like that for everybody. In addition to that, on that same day, our Kyle Astronomy Club, which is a new club that meets here in town that's sponsored by the library. So that's at 2 p.m. for anybody that's interested. I don't know if anybody's been watching the photographs coming out from the Webb telescope and different things like that, but this group meets at 2 p.m. and I'm sure that before long there will be some night viewings and different things like that sponsored by the library. That's the plan. On July 30th, our culmination party, the Saber Guild Jakku Temple, will be there from 11 to 1, and that's the folks that dress up like the Star Wars characters and come out, and the kids really enjoy that. So they'll be there for a couple hours doing that. Hopefully we'll have R2 and other people there as well, so the kids really like that. Now, to give you some sense, we're really happy about these numbers this year. Last year, I think we had about 161 people sign up for the summer reading program, so it's pretty dismal. This year, we've got 524 signed up so far, and it's growing. You know, we're still having people with that, and 166,979 minutes have been read during the summer reading program, and we're just south of 2,200 people in our programs in June. So that doesn't include any July, but in June. So we've had very good turnout. And it's good news. I think the pandemic's over and people are coming back to the library, so we're happy about that. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe we could have like a few dozen questions that we can ask
Yes.
him and just keep him up here for a while.
So some of you may have heard that Paul's retiring. He's leaving us to go pursue his passion to teach school in San Antonio. Paul's been here for 6 years, and I remember interviewing Paul when we were looking for our next library director. And Paul was the last one that we interviewed out of that basket of people. And before we interviewed Paul, we were like, holy crud, we don't have any really good candidates. And so then came Paul. And by the time we got done interviewing Paul, half the people in the interview panel said, I'd go work for that guy. and it's just been all great things since then. I think the best thing that Paul has done, or the most notable thing Paul has done, is just all the new programs that have come to the library. We tasked Paul with creating the library of the future. And I think every day the future just gets closer and closer and closer, and he has led his staff. He's built a very competent staff. Not that we didn't have one before, but I'll put our library and our staff up against anybody's, and Paul is the reason for that. In addition to being a great library director, Paul is just a cool dude. If you ever, I've always referred to him as the coolest library director in Texas, because how many library directors will drive up in their Harley low rider kind of thing, wearing a leather jacket and shades with no helmet when hair just pulled back. So Paul, this is your last meeting. I want to say personally, thank you so much. And I'm going to turn you loose to the council.
Thank you all. Just to say that I'm a little sad to go. I think this town is right on the cusp of just, I know the discussions we've had about the new library, and I think that's going to be probably the coolest library that's ever been built. And I really do believe that because of the leadership on this council. And I think that's going to be a great journey. But for me, as much as I'm sad to leave that behind and my staff and a city that I've enjoyed, I've always, I started out this life as a teacher, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll be teaching at the Estrada Achievement Center, which is the alternative school in San Antonio, and I'll be starting there on April 9th or whatever, April 11th perhaps. So I'll be getting back to doing that and maybe giving something back a little bit to the community, hopefully. But anyway, I know this library will be in good hands with our great staff, and I know this council is getting ready to do some great things. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, and I do appreciate everything.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay? Thank you.
Hey, Paul, just real quick, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the years that you've given our city. Thank you for all that you've achieved in the short time you've been here, 6 years. And I wish it would have been 10. I'm just saying that right now, buddy. But thank you also for your friendship and for the leadership that you showed at the library. You're going to be truly missed. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to miss you, buddy. And it was pretty cool to go to other cities and say, what's your library director got? Mine shows up in his leather jacket and sunglasses. So it was pretty cool. Thank you, Paul.
I've ridden my motorcycle over to your house before, I think. I think I remember that. All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And if it's not bad enough, we're losing Paul. James, I think James is online. This is so I may or may not.
I'm here, Jerry.
I may or may not get emotional about this one. So James got here exactly 1 week after I did, almost 16 years ago. And we're losing a great asset to our community and to our staff and to everything Kyle stands for. Since my memory really sucks and I can't remember what I had for breakfast, I had some people help me write down some of his accomplishments. And this may take more than 3 minutes, so don't turn on the timer. He led the first ever meet and confer negotiations between the City of Kyle and the Police Association. He served as appointment to the Emergency Services District Board. He served as emergency management, as a lead for emergency management, and drafted our first emergency management plan. Led response during multiple flood events, drafted several ordinances for public safety and community enhancement, helped foster community engagement, designed and oversaw the remodel project for the police department at 111 North Front Street. Has been instrumental in helping design the new police station. He was instrumental in orchestrating the construction of the new public works facility, instrumental in the foresight to bring in a public works director to revamp public works. And when James and I started here, public works had, I think, about 4 employees. Is that right, James?
The 4 that were probably working really hard at the time.
Yeah. And I'll remember our first department head meeting, sitting here in the Falcone room, looking out. Public Works Director at the time, Jimmy Hilverda, was out on Front Street with 2 defining rods looking for the water pipe. So we've come a long way since then. Creation of the Community Development Department and the staffing, created in-house engineering department and staffing, implemented the one-stop shop for community development, worked with developers and development agreements that too many to count. A problem solver in any situation. As many of y'all probably know, if you have a problem, you come to James, he'll figure out a way to help you with it. His institutional knowledge in our city is second to none. Quietly resolves conflicts with citizens and staff, serves on the City Managers of Tomorrow committee and probably was instrumental in starting that. Active in TCMA, serves on professional development committees, a mentor to so many people. So that's James in a nutshell, and it doesn't do him justice. So, James, good luck, and we're going to miss you, buddy.
Thanks, Jerry, man.
I'll actually add something to that, James. I've told this story a couple times about James, but you know, I remember it's been a little over 6 years ago now that I first, actually, it's 9 years ago when I first met James. He resolved a conflict in my business that I was dealing with as I was trying to get open, and had it not been for him, I might have lost my hair even faster. So I was always appreciative of the way that you interacted with me as I was starting a new business. But more so than that, you imparted in me the belief that consistent leadership is important in a community, and you certainly provided that to this city for a number of years. Consistent leadership, and so I think those are adjectives that describe you very well. And so I think the city of Hutto is getting an asset with you, and I certainly wish you the best. I've said this to you privately, but you know, it's they're big shoes when you step into the top role. It's a lot more intense. You've seen that though through the years, and so you're not stepping into something you're not very aware of what's coming. And so I know that you're going to be just what Hutto needs. So thank you for your service to the city. I really appreciate it. Does anybody have anything they want to add with James?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just want to say thank you, James. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for taking all those late night calls when I was a new council member, trying to learn my job. Thank you for always being available. Thank you for helping me grow as a council member. I just want to say that it's been a pleasure working with you, and I've learned a lot as well. And truly going to be missed. And yeah, Hutto's getting a great asset. So wish you all the best and Godspeed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzo.
Councilor Flores-Cale.
Thank you. So I think I've told you about 1 million times about how much I'm going to miss you. But I want to say thank you for disagreeing with me. And thank you for putting me in my place. And thank you for listening. And thank you for allowing me to tell you some things about you that I think that hopefully help you grow as a leader. I've learned a lot from our conversations overall, and not just about the city, but spiritually, and not being afraid to do the right thing and to be the good person that we are. I've also learned that I really wish you could have stayed here. I wish you could have grown with Kyle, and I'm super jealous of Hutto. But with that said, I'm also really excited to be able to talk to you whenever I want, and to develop a deeper relationship, and to have a dinner and talk about stuff other than the city. So I wish you all the sevens in the world, and you deserve every good thing that's going to come to you.
Councilor
Thank you
Parsley.
very much.
So I was very surprised when I sent an email to you today, and he just went back like, no, he's basically out of the office. And I'm like, I was about to message Jerry and say, are we doing anything for James, like farewell or something? So like everybody else, I'm going to miss you. And I am incredibly grateful for everything that you did for me, walking me through process, explaining things like I'm a second grader. I really appreciated being a new council member and not knowing anything about anything. You were an amazing help. So I really wish you the best. I hope that, you can come back to Kyle at some point. And I'm not going to let anybody sell your house, just saying.
Thank you, Parsley.
Anything you want to say, James?
Yeah, generally, like Jerry, it's really hard to reflect back on 16 years and not get too terribly emotional about it. But all of the successes, all of the things that have come, they've all come because of the wonderful people that are in this community and the wonderful staff and council members and citizens that we have. I feel very well prepared for the next chapter in my life, and a great deal of that I have to thank you all for. So I feel like I'm leaving the organization in good hands in Jerry. And I just wish you all the best, and thank you so much for your kind words and letting me feel, just feel loved as I'm on my way into this next chapter. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up, agenda item number 8, BGK Architects presentation regarding downtown master plan survey results. Mr. Will Atkinson.
Will Atkinson, Interim Director of Planning, for the record. This is actually going to be performed by Tommy, Narcissus, and Michaela from BGK Architects. They are online, and I hand it over to y'all.
All righty. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, good evening, everyone. We are really excited to visit with you today about our findings from our public events and engagements, from all the questionnaire responses and things we received. I'm Tommy Kasarik with BGK Architects, and with me is Michaela Ponce and Narcissus Holmes, both with me from BGK. You know, as part of our planning work that we're also helping you all with for the past 3 or 4 months, we've been working on this particular effort with much assistance from the city staff. They've been super helpful in helping us to get some of these events and things organized. Super helpful, so thank you. You know, in our work, we believe community engagement and involving stakeholders is so important for achieving consensus and buy-in. You know, so the whole community has a sense of ownership. And as we receive and get all this extra input, it's going to just help and guide and help us to make the design standards and the guidelines and the master plan even better. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Michaela and Narcissus to take us through our findings.
Hi, so I'm Michaela Ponce. I am an architectural designer at BGKA or BGK Architects.
And I'm Narcissus Holmes, and I'm an intern.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I guess, do we have the ability to share the screen? Oh, sweet. Thank you so much, Narcissus. Yeah, and so this is a presentation that we put together regarding the results that we got from the public engagement questionnaire that we hosted and shared with the residents of Kyle. Yeah, and so we kicked off the launch of this online questionnaire with the Earth Day event that Parks and Rec put on, handing out free plants to residents at the Mary Kyle Hartson Park. We decided this would be a great opportunity to get in touch with residents and start getting in touch with them regarding the downtown master plan and really getting to hear from them on a one-on-one basis on what kinds of things they like about downtown right now and what sorts of things they'd like to see in the future. And so we had 3 boards that we were sort of showing residents, one regarding the history of Kyle, one regarding places that we are, you know, places that could be in downtown Kyle, and then another generally talking about the downtown master plan and with a QR code to the survey link.
And our next event that we had was the movie night. That's when we went out when the kids were watching Jumanji in the park. And during that, we just had 2 boards up where kids were able to tell us what they wanted to see in Kyle and what they already love about Kyle, particularly in downtown. As you can see, my dog Kona was there, who's a really big help in kind of bringing in the kids. And it was overall really great experience to hear what the kids really wanted to see.
Yeah, and so I guess regarding the questionnaire methodology, so the questionnaire was open to the public on April 22nd and remained open through June 8th, just, you know, since the beginning of last month. And so links to the questionnaire were posted on the City of Kyle website, as well as City of Kyle social media like Instagram and Facebook. And it was a questionnaire hosted on SurveyMonkey with 21 questions and was available to anyone with the link. And so, we got the word out during the Earth Day event. And then additionally, the movie night actually served as a great opportunity to where, younger kids who may not interface with the questionnaire quite as easily as teenagers and adults could still get their, opinions heard and get to tell us what they want downtown. Yeah, and so regarding the demographics of those who took the questionnaire, we didn't ask too many demographics questions, but we did want to get a general sense of who was responding to the survey. And so, the majority of respondents were adults over the age of 25. We wanted to get a sense of how long respondents had lived in Kyle. And so, of course, a good number have been in Kyle for many years, 10 to 25 years. But then a decent chunk, around a quarter of respondents, have also just moved to Kyle. And so, I think this really helps to know that, there's a lot of people who are new to Kyle and who, maybe, seeking new things or getting a sense of the city. And then, of course, there are so many people who have called Kyle home for a long time. And then additionally, we also asked what time of day do you visit downtown Kyle, just so we can get a sense of what kinds of, businesses and places that might work very well downtown based on when people are already visiting it nowadays.
And then the next set of questions that we asked were pretty much asking how often people visit downtown and why. So as you can see, most respondents only visit downtown about less than once a month. But in contrast, they only live about 1 to 5 miles away. Those are our two major responses to those questions. And then on top of that, the biggest obstacle in visiting downtown was the types of businesses. From this, we were able to conclude that even though a lot of people live relatively close to downtown, the reasons why they aren't visiting is because of the businesses that are currently on site. And then moving on in the questionnaire, we did ask a variety of questions, about 20, just so that we could get a concise answer of what residents of downtown really felt. There wasn't just 1 or 2 questions saying, what do you like about it and what you don't? There was a lot of categories for people to truly give their input on the subject.
Yeah, and so, we saw that these were some of the, I guess, some of the biggest questions that we believe in the survey that really shone some light on people's thoughts regarding downtown Kyle. And so a majority of respondents stated that downtown Kyle doesn't have everything they need. The scale was on 1 to 10, with 1, being sort of a low rating and 10 being a higher rating. And so, that kind of gives a sense of, what people are thinking. With the second question, the majority respondents stated that downtown Kyle needs to be bigger. And then lastly, the majority of downtown Kyle isn't family friendly. So you can see that several respondents were kind of in the middle there, and then a good number were saying that it isn't family friendly. So these were very helpful for us to know moving forward. Yeah, and so we also gave respondents the option to write in. We gave them the option for write-in questions, and so as you all saw on the earlier slide, there were several multiple choice or rating questions, but then there were a few questions where respondents had just an open comment box so they could tell us what kinds of things they'd like to see in downtown Kyle. And so The vast majority said that they want to see small local businesses in downtown Kyle. A smaller number, but still majority of respondents said they want unique restaurants downtown. And then, less respondents, but still a good number said they want outdoor seating, bakery. They want better parking downtown. They want a gift shop and antique shop. And then they actually mentioned specifically that they would like a Trader Joe's downtown. So I know that some respondents were saying that, they'd want a local feeling grocery store downtown, that they don't necessarily want, a department store like HEB or Walmart, but that they'd like sort of a smaller grocery store downtown. And then some respondents, especially people with kids or kids themselves, said they wanted an ice cream and frozen yogurt shop to cool off with.
And then we also asked residents to write in things that they like about downtown Kyle. And there was a lot of responses talking about how great the holiday lights are. And a lot of people also responded how they're using the park often, the Mary Kyle Hartson Park. And then the Rail House Bar and the Pie Shop are both big staples in Kyle that people really love.
Yeah, and so this question prompted people to think of sort of other installations and things maybe outside of businesses per se that they would love to see downtown. And so, people said they wanted to see public art and murals and such to sort of, get local artists involved in the city's aesthetic. Plenty of people were saying that they want a children's museum or indoor play area for kids. And that, that a bookstore or hardware store, locally owned would be a fantastic addition. And then, I know a lot of respondents were saying that they don't necessarily want, a bar downtown per se, but they would love something like a local craft brewery, just because that would, sort of foster a sense of community and have a really nice outdoor gathering space where people can meet up. And then lastly, people, especially kids at the movie night event, and some of the writing results said they wanted a splash pad. I know they want sort of a water feature to be able to cool off with during the summer, especially after playing in the park. And so that was something that we really noted in both the questionnaire and in the movie night responses.
So moving on and doing a more in-depth look of the movie night responses. As you can see, the three colors represent different ages. So the green color represents the 0 to 5 age range, yellow is for 6 to 11, and purple is for 12 plus. As you could see, the major response that we got was a water park. That may be a little bit due to the fact that it was 100 degrees, but it seemed to be a fan favorite. There was also a lot of other things that children were interested in. They wanted dog parks, trampoline areas, ice cream shops, cotton candy shops, basketball courts. The overall consensus was that children just wanted a place to be able to hang out and have fun outside in an environment. And that was what a lot of our responses was telling us.
Yeah, and so, the major takeaways that we got from all this was that, Kyle residents want more family-friendly places. Parents and kids alike want more places that they can, interact with and spend time with their friends and community members. They also want unique shops in downtown Kyle that really makes it feel like, a destination, like its own place. And I know a lot of people already love sort of the charm and character of downtown Kyle. And so, they really just want that to be sort of encouraged and celebrated in any work going forward on downtown Kyle.
And then as you see, Kona makes a comeback for our final slide. to tell us kind of the final thoughts that we're really taking into consideration with the master plan. So residents want better parking, they want a grocery store, they want more retail and restaurants, they want more residential downtown, and they also just want a more walkable streetscape so that people could walk around downtown and enjoy it. And that's our presentation.
That's what we have.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone on council want to provide some feedback or commentary? Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, and I think it was pretty spot on. But my question is going to be, I see that there was a want for small local businesses, but then you also had a category for gift shop. So going back to the small local businesses, do we know which type of small local businesses that the residents were looking for?
I think,
Yeah.
go ahead, Michaela. I'll chime in. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so actually one of our questions was a multiple choice question where you could select sort of as many different businesses as you wanted to see downtown. And it had like, I think 12 to 15 choices. It was a lot that ranged from arts and craft stores to, a gift shop to boutique stores to like a gym. And we actually have all of that data in the presentation, as well as a packet that we're providing to the city. And so the gift shop and antique shop just had a lot of votes put towards it, but there were actually quite a few different kinds of businesses that people were interested in.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that the ones we kind of highlighted got the most, but just about every one of those items got some amount of, we would like to have this or that,
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I want to agree. That was a great presentation. Can we get this presentation sent out to council, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? All right. I was encouraged by the number of respondents that were that appreciated our Christmas lights. Seems like that's been a big hit.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Overwhelming. They love the holiday festivities and all that, and they're kind of like to see more of that somehow. Because they know how they love that park so much. We heard so much about it. The way the new Hartson Park, right, the transformed, and it's very beloved by the community, the folks we talk to. So.
Yeah, it's hard to find a time in the day when that park doesn't have visitors. Even when it's 100 degrees outside, there are still visitors because of how well shaded it is and how activated the space is. It's really encouraging.
Exactly.
So, but that's not enough. We can build on it. All right, anyone else?
Absolutely.
All right, next up, CIP road projects and consent agenda presentation. Mr. Barba. Thank you again, BGK.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. First up, Heroes Memorial Park. We're almost there. We're at 99% completion. The porcelain is complete. The granite is near completion this week. Ring wall is complete. They're still working on the landscape and planning, and the granite paver is near completion at the event lawn area. They're waterproofing some structures around the area, and we're expecting to complete that project later this month. Levetta the Park, we're at 61% completion. The playground is 90% complete. Sidewalks and hardscaping is ongoing. The decking and roofing at the pavilion structure is in progress. Installation of the irrigation is in progress. Volleyball court, concrete is in progress. Curbs are being placed. They're excavating for the footer at the pavilion, and that's in progress. We're doing the electrical rough-in at the pavilion restrooms, and we're expecting to complete this late 2022. Public Safety Center, 44% complete. Transformer set. They're working on the entry columns, framing. Apparently pouring the porous concrete parking that's there. They're working on the masonry installation on phase 1 and 4. They're installing the roof membrane on phase 2 and 3. That's been installed. Second floor, they're working on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, rough end. Substantial completion date, that's February 6, 2023. Southside wastewater improvements. We were hoping this contractor would be able to start the project there to wrap up that last section that's in front of Edwards Drive and Post Road. Apparently, their subcontractor was having a problem getting barriers so we could block off that lane, that frontage road lane that TxDOT's approved. This afternoon, we did find some barriers that they'll be able to set up, so we'll be able to start that project and wrap it up. Wastewater treatment expansion project, the dewatering facility is 44% complete. They poured the concrete slab on July the 12th and 13th. Should have that complete by August of 2022. They're still working on the Bullseye plant there, and they're still cleaning it up. And the operations building has received the TCO, the temporary occupancy permit, so they're ready to move in. That's the overall picture. This is just a couple of pictures of the work that's going on there. It's really interesting to see that low-impact development feature that's been installed in that project. Elliott Branch Interceptor, this project's about 68% complete. The road closures continue. All the test results have passed, so our new water mains that we placed are going to be put in service this week, and connections will be made next week. There's some storm sewer installation on the following street intersections that should be completed by the end of this week: Scott Street and 3rd Street, Sledge and 3rd Street. We are planning to start reconstruction on Sledge Street next week, and the plan is to complete that work in about a month. So council, typically I tell you a month. With all the issues that we have with our contractors, you might want to say 4 to 6 weeks on this. This is a picture of the storm sewers that we're working on recently. Downtown relocation overhead lines, we're about 82% complete, and the PEC crew is working on Nance Street. They're setting the last pole. When we complete that, we'll start coordination with PEC for switching services, and that should start possibly next week. Old Post Road continues still, construction still continues at the north end. We installed the drainage pipe near 150. That is complete. That's a picture of it there. They're installing base at the north end, at the driveway that's at Lauren Concrete. This project is almost complete too. This is a Plum Creek elevated storage tank. They're cleaning up the site. We should start disinfection Thursday, and we should start refilling that same day. If everything goes well, we should take water samples next week and have that tower back in service. Indian Paintbrush Lift Station, we just started on that project. We're about 5% complete. We started the excavation for the wet well. The Button Creek Interceptor Lift Station decommissioning, both lift stations are disconnected. They're taking these stations apart, and the parts that Public Works can use, they're going ahead and taking those and saving those. Anything else, we're just getting rid of it. We still need to coordinate with PEC to cut off the power. That's the only thing that's kind of slowing us down right now. Microsurfacing, that started this week, actual surfacing. Last week we were doing the prep work. So that started today. This is a picture there at Scott at Opal Lane. On the consent agenda items, number 11 is interesting because council back in May of 20, we did this same particular item. And what's happened, I guess the TxDOT changed some requirements in there. So I looked at both resolutions and they're almost identical. There was one paragraph that was added, so the county asked us to run this back through for council's approval. So in essence, we're going to take over about 900 feet of road on 967 for maintenance by the city. On item number 13, this is some additional work we need to do on the Anthem water line. We did have to do one more bore out there. We tried to go out there and do the bores all at one time, but the owner wasn't there that one day that we went there to do that, so we have to go back and pay for the remobilization on that. We're also doing some assessment. We have discovered there might be evidence of the warbler out there, so we're going to have to do an assessment on that, and we're going to have to see what we end up doing with that particular project, depending on the golden cheek warbler issue. On number 14, this is one I've mentioned at the last council meeting. We've got some concerns about this section of road between Cal Crossing and the bridge and the railroad tracks. I'm seeing some failures there that I'm not used to seeing, so I've asked this firm to do a really good forensic study of that area. So I asked them to do the whole section from I-35 back to 2770 as part of that study. Any questions?
Any questions for Leon? Councilmember Parsley.
Hi, thank you. I have questions about item 14. So I was reviewing the service agreement in section 9. How are they going to do this sampling? Because for what I'm reading in here, Sampling, observation, and test location depth and elevation will be based on field estimates and/or information furnished by the client, which would be the city, right?
That's correct.
So what are we testing then if they're going to use estimates?
We're actually going to do 3 types of testing there. I'm glad you asked. We're going to do 3 types of testing there. We're going to do actually drill holes in the ground to see what was placed there. From the evidence that we found on the past construction plans, we didn't get as-built, but we did find the actual construction plans. We're supposed to have 6 inches of asphalt, 7 inches of gravel, and lime stabilization for about 8 inches. So we want to make sure that that's what we got when the roads were built. So that's one test they're going to run, is to do actual cores where they're drilling into the pavement to find out what's there. The second test we're going to do is a falling weight deflectometer. Best way I can describe it, if they drop a huge ball on the pavement, and when it bounces, it measures the height of the bounce, and that tells you the strength of that particular structure. The other test we're going to do is a ground penetrating radar, so we can kind of see what layers are under there. My suspicion is that not only the truck traffic that's giving us problems there, we may have some water underneath there somewhere, but we just don't know that. That's why I'm asking for a complete analysis of what the heck is happening here, so we can find out. Because what I don't want to do is have a solution that looks good for a year or 2 and then it fails. I don't want that to happen. So I need to make sure whatever solution we come up with, that or the recommendation they give us, is going to be something that's going to last us for another 10 or 15 years.
So we will be testing the actual, whatever fracture we have. We're going to be doing the testing in there just to see what we have under the concrete, correct?
Under the asphalt, yes, ma'am.
The asphalt, I'm sorry. The other question I had is in section number 10. It says areas shall not be responsible for any acts or omissions on the contractor, subcontractor, or entity performing any portion of the work. Does not guarantee the performance of the contractor and shall not be responsible for the failure to perform its work. So that's, I don't know, it's a little weird for me. So that means that if they don't come with any correct findings, they're not to be liable for that?
That's what they wanted, yes, ma'am. Because that's a separate contractor. We asked them to hire that contractor because of the special studies that we needed.
So if they hire a subcontractor to do that study and they fail to report correct information, then we just lost all the $29,000 on the study.
We're going to review the analysis, and we have a good project manager who's very familiar with road construction, so she's got a lot of experience, and she's going to be looking at this report as well as I am to make sure that what we get is good information. So we'll be keeping an eye on that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Leon, real quick, what is the completion date for Old Post Road? Do you know what they're targeting?
In talking to the county, they were talking about late summer.
Late summer. All right. Thank you, Leon.
Anyone else?
To kind of counter off of Councilmember Parsley, so the sub-consultant price of $23.23, is that what we're basing it off? If we have to do another consultant company to come in to do it, we lost out on that?
They're going to provide tests, and they're going to analyze it to the best of their ability with their professional engineers.
Okay.
So they're going to have to stand behind their stamps and their seals that the information they gave us is correct. If something does fail, go wrong, then we need to go after the engineers that presented those reports and presented those findings.
Okay. Because that way we can hold them accountable versus if they get a third-party consulting company to do it. I guess that's what Ms. Parsley was getting at.
Yeah.
If we have issues later on to when we start construction on it or we start working on it, when we had other issues with projects that we had to where it was an engineering or error and it's on the city where we have to do change orders versus the actual contractor doing the work, I guess it's just a matter of making sure that we're covered, that we're not losing out on that money. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at as well with Ms. Parsley.
Let me see if I can explain this better. We asked RES to hire this sub-consultant firm. And since this is not their specialty, that's why they don't want to take any responsibility for what this firm provides. Because this is a different special type of testing.
Okay.
RES will be doing the cores. and the borings that we're asking for. So they're very knowledgeable about what they do. They just don't have the expertise on the rest of the falling weight deflectometer or what I call it, the ground penetration radar. They don't have the expertise. So I can understand why they don't want that responsibility, because that's not their area of expertise.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Leon. All right, next up is the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to pull any items? Entertain motions.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 10 through 15.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there, that we approve the consent agenda as presented? Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item 16, consider possible action on an interlocal agreement by and between the City of Kyle, Texas and Hays County, Texas for the improvement of park facilities at sites owned by the City of Kyle. Mr. Hendrix.
Mayor and Council, for the record, Jerry Hendrix, acting. This spring, represents a couple years' worth of work between the city and the county. You may remember back in November of 2020, the citizens of the Kyle were gracious and generous enough to pass a $10 million bond for parks improvements. At the same time, county residents were approving an even more generous bond for improvements on parks all across Hays County. And we've been negotiating with the county ever since for them to match our $10 million. And earlier today, the county commissioners approved that match. So before you is an interlocal agreement with the County of Hays to match our $10 million for 3 separate park projects. Project 1 is the upcoming Sportsplex that we're currently working on. The elements of that project include 1 mile of multi-purpose trail, picnic areas, a covered pavilion, outdoor public restrooms, an inclusive playground, a skateboard park, competition, soccer field complex, sand volleyball courts, basketball courts, an outdoor amphitheater, fitness and strength equipment, recreation and practice fields, landscaping, including trees and vegetation, parking, and environmental interpretation. The budget for that project is $7 million from the city's $10 million plus $7 million match from the county. So total budget for that project is $14 million. The second project is Plum Creek Trail Improvements. The elements of that project include 7 miles of multi-purpose concrete trail, which will be part of our Vibe, shaded rest stops along the trail, public outdoor restrooms, interactive kiosk, trail machinery, parking access, interpretive signage, exercise equipment, emergency call stations. The total budget for that is $4 million. It's $2 million from the city's bond, $2 million from the county bond. The third project is Greg Clark Park improvements. Those elements include bathrooms, concessions, an interior park road, landscaping and irrigation, leveling and grading, spectator improvements, skateboard park, ash pavilion improvements, playground improvements, lighting improvements, sod repair, and basketball and tennis court repair. The total budget for that is $2 million, $1 million from the city and $1 million from the county. Staff very enthusiastically recommends approval, and we want to thank the county for working with us on this, and their commissioners and their staff, the county judge, and there's our staff as well, and the city council for working to make this happen.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Tobias.
Okay, right off the bat, so we're getting $2 million for Greg Park for the improvements on that?
It's $1 million, $2 million altogether, $1 million from us, $1 million from the county.
From the county, okay, so that would help with those improvements. Now, when it comes to the, and I had a question from a resident as well. When it comes to the Sportsplex, the land itself, did we purchase that, or was that land that was donated to us, or is it going to be public land that we had originally? How did all that work for that?
I don't have the information on that. I haven't been involved in it.
So the 11 acres for the Sportsplex was negotiated with our retail roads agreement, and the agreement with Momark. Page can speak to that portion of it. That is land that is being dedicated to the city, so that will be public land.
Okay.
And then in addition, in 2018, when we negotiated our development agreement with Lennar for Plum Creek North, There was also some acreage, 20-plus acres dedicated to the city of Kyle, and the combination of that. So none of the money is going to purchase the land, and none of the improvements will be on private land. It'll all be on land that is dedicated to the city, and so all the dollars would go into the improvements.
Oh, great, good. Now, with the this approval that came in through the county, once we're all done, do you think in time that we might have an influx of extra funds available to where if we need to, we could use some of this money for other areas of the city for improvement?
The language in
the steeplechase or something like
ILA
that?
allows us to use surplus funds from one project to put towards one of the other two projects.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, the bond money from our bond proposition that is left over goes back to the city. I'm not sure how that works with the county part. Paige, can you answer that?
It's an event if we get any kind of surplus or whatever, we just have an additional 500 or 200,000 from all of this we could allocate to other parks.
I will say we have some other projects that aren't listed here for the parks and the trails that we would probably ask to add if there's any extra money left over.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I was waiting on, yeah, waiting on Paige, yeah.
Yeah. Mayor and Council, Paige Signs, City Attorney for the record. So the counties, if there are funds that are, there are several project categories, and if the funds that are allocated by the county for one of the projects, if the city comes in under budget, then those funds can be rolled over into another one of the projects that's on the list. So that's one way that the excess funds can be used.
Councilmember Flores-Cale.
All right, thank you. I have a few questions, and let me preface with this really makes me excited. There's a lot of stuff I think that we need to get done as a city, doing these parks and trails. I'm really excited, but I am torn because I think it's a lot to take on as a city at the current time. So just to clarify and to make my vote a little bit easier, I just have a few questions. I want to make sure that this land is currently owned by the city, the Sportsplex, because that looks like under purpose and legal authority 1.1, it's a requirement that the land is owned by the city.
It's definitely a requirement that it must be owned by the city.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we do own it, that it's been deeded over to us and it's completed. Because if not, then that's contrary to the contract.
We do own it.
Okay.
Well, it's in the retail roads agreement, so we have obligations, so
We've got an agreement for it to be conveyed, but it's not been completed. I think the understanding of the parties is that we have to provide evidence that it will be conveyed, so if there's a clarification there for comfort, we can make that, but that's, my understanding is that we'd have to demonstrate that those had been conveyed when the funds are to be spent.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure we're not acting prematurely and that we get into this and then something happens later on and then it's not needed to us. So that was just one of my concerns. My other concerns, and it's kind of late in the game to focus on this, and I was really confused because I know we had a city bond and then we had a county bond, and so my Facebook shows it all, like my craziness, my line of thinking. So going back to the exhibits for the Sportsplex, two things that kind of jumped out to me that make it hard for me to vote for this is there's going to be a skate park and an outdoor amphitheater at the Sportsplex. And I know this area is already going to have an amphitheater, and then Gray Clark Park is already going to have a skateboard park. So
So that we have designed nothing for the parks. I think the way it was is there was when we made our initial proposal to POSAC, we listed a lot of different possibilities of what it could be.
Okay.
So this shows the different categories. It's like, up to, but not, it doesn't mean, I would expect that most of the items for the sportsplex will not end up being designed. So my question was actually going to be, the follow-up is, now that we have the ILA, assuming we vote for this, now that we have the ILA in place, we can issue an RFP for a consultant to come in and help put together a package, working with council and the community to determine exactly what would go where and what our priorities are.
Okay.
So I agree, we definitely shouldn't be doing, because there's also an amphitheater component at La Verde as well.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, they kind of threw the kitchen sink at this.
Okay.
But I think the focus, personally, should be on the sports aspect of it.
Correct.
Which is what we have a sports desert here in the city of Kyle.
Sure.
We have a lot of deserts, but that's
We
one
already,
of them.
we already have RFPs ready to go for the skate park at Great Clark Park, and even a splash pad at Great Clark Park, assuming we have leftover funds able to do that. I think we will.
Okay, can you tell me what the environmental interpretation is?
I cannot. Paige,
Paige, can you tell us?
I was wondering that myself, to be honest.
No, I cannot tell you what that is.
Okay. Thank you. So for the Plum Creek Trail improvements, when it talks about parking, is that for cars or golf carts?
Both.
Both, okay.
Once again, this stuff can be whatever we want it to be. When we first presented this, we didn't have the vibe trail or golf carts in mind, but we can make this whatever we want it to be.
Okay. My concern, well, actually, let me ask this. Do we know what soft costs are going to be? Under 13.2 says the parties agree that the funds paid by county under this agreement shall not be utilized to fund in-house city operations or labor, shall not be utilized to pay for soft costs associated with any of the projects. And I'm just curious.
We haven't developed any formal budgets for any of this, but as we develop those, we'll make sure we're in compliance with the rules of the ILA.
Okay, I guess I'm just overall curious what a soft cost is.
It's like engineering and design, so it's not the capital improvements, the cost to put the capital improvement onto the property, it's the cost of the design.
Okay, but we can use city bond money for that, for the cost of the design? I guess I'm wondering where we're gonna
Yes.
get it from, okay.
Yeah, we would spend city bond proceeds to design the projects, all three. And then whenever it came time to issue construction bonds, that's, the county they're only gonna put their money into the improvements. but-
Correct, so the city's expenditure is not limited, but the county only wants to put money into the actual capital improvements. on the
Okay,
property.
so, okay, and my kind of deal breaker is section 4, city duties, construction phase of project. So 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, all talk about city staff. And my fear is we currently are at a place where I don't know if we're gonna have enough city staff to cover all this. And I don't want to overwork the staff that we have. And I don't want to fall behind. I don't want to start this and then fail later on down the road.
From a staff perspective, we've been looking forward to this for a couple of years, and we're ready to hit the ground running with it. And as we get further along in the development, we start working on our budget requests for the next fiscal year, after the one we're working on now, we'll bring any staff needs forward at that time.
Okay, so moving forward, we will take staff for at least Parks and Rec, I guess what staff are we gonna need to monitor all these? It looks like inspections and then review and approve payments, so that's gonna be,
We already have city inspectors that we will use for this. We already have our finance team that can help process all the payments, and I think we're well positioned to be able to take care of the first phase of this.
okay, all right, that's all the questions, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem, that we approve agenda item 16. Is there discussion on that motion?
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
first of all, I just want to thank the county Commissioners Court for their partnership in this. As I look throughout the Hayes County, it's very encouraging to see that the county and cities in Hayes County are looking forward to expanding our parks projects, our trails, and that's just improving the quality of life of our residents. I'm truly excited about this, and I just want to say thank you to the Commissioners Court. And for all those that went out and voted for the bonds, thank you. I think this is going to be a great asset to our city. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I actually want to, I'll piggyback on that as well, because, this has been more than 2 years of discussions. It was an entirely you know, we were in a different place back when we voted for this parks bond. We hadn't, I think maybe it's the first parks bond we've ever done. I'm not sure that any of our previous parks projects were presented to the voters in this manner. And thinking strategically, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just asking the voters for dollars, but that we were leveraging those dollars, which has always been something I've tried to do in every way. And really leaned on the county, worked with the county to make sure that, you know, that there would be an opportunity to match so that we could essentially just double the value of every dollar that the city residents approved. We get, you know, dollars coming down from the county, which just makes these projects much more viable and makes our dollars go further. So, you know, I've been, you know, vocally supportive of this sportsplex for a long time because, you know, there's if you're, our town loves soccer, and there is nowhere to go. There are no soccer leagues in the city of Kyle, no soccer fields sufficient to host tournaments, public tournaments for our kids in the city of Kyle. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to provide that for the first time, to actually have city leagues and city events, and an opportunity for our Parks Department to expand in that way through the coming years, and for us to put our name on you know, a project that will provide value to the community for, hopefully for years to come. So I'm just really, really excited. I want to thank the commissioners because I know they got an earful from, not just from me through the years asking, but from others as well, you know, for us to, you know, really make sure that this deal that we had came to fruition. It took 2 years. Actually a little more than that, but yet here it is. And so the county has fulfilled their word on this, and there's trust and relationships that are important in the county that we have. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a major showing of relationship building and trust that the county has provided to us. And so I'm thankful for that. Those are my commentaries. Councilor Tobias.
Yes, sir. You're right, both of y'all, because it seems like we were in a different world 2 years ago. Obviously, it was a different time. It feels so long ago, and we didn't really know the impacts of COVID back then, right? So finally seeing all this work come through, and finally starting to see that we can start getting this done. You know, it really is exciting to finally to see it. And yes, you know, thank you to the Commissioners Court for holding their obligation and helping us with this project for the much needed for the residents and for us to build our green space that we've always wanted in our parks. So I think it's finally coming around. When people have asked me through the years, when's the parks going to be built? What happened to that? You know, I thought you guys were going to fix this and fix that. Well, now we're here now, and so if this goes through, we can get the ball rolling on this. But just wanted to add that.
All right. Anyone else? Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that this was a bond that was voted on in 2020. The bond very plainly states what it's going to be used for, and then it says that the funds are going to be matched. So this is really not. This is what was voted. This was
That's right.
by the residents, and so I did not know that initially. So you know, this is just we're just following through with what they discussed in 2020. So this is nothing new.
Correct. Thank you for saying that. Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0.
Got it.
That was a big vote.
Yeah.
Next up, agenda item number 17, first reading, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 1033, regulating traffic, authorizing and directing the installation and erection of stop signs for the traffic control at the intersection of Silverado Drive and FM 150, Veterans Drive. In the city limits of Kyle, repealing any ordinance or resolution in conflict, providing a severability clause, declaring a penalty, and providing an effective date. Mr. Barba.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. Council, back when we started the Burleson Street project, we started setting up several detours throughout the project so we could work on the road. One of those detours that we set up actually forced people to use Silverado to get to what was called Rebel Road back then. So as a way to help the residents out of Silverado get through that intersection, we worked with TxDOT to ask them to look at the possibility of installing stop signs as a temporary measure on what was called Rebel Road at that time. And so now
So
today.
Leon, just to clarify, the reason you're saying what was called Rebel Road, because it's in the caption, but that's because that's the way the ordinance is
Exactly.
written?
Yes, sir.
All
That's
right.
exactly why I'm
Fair
saying
enough.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's, just wanted to clarify
The
that.
new-
All right,
the-
go
the,
ahead.
Ordinance repealing this does refer, say that there was a name change, so it is Veterans Drive today, yes, sir.
Okay.
But the reason, we did talk to TxDOT, they're in agreement that we should go ahead and remove those stop signs that are in the north-south lanes of Veterans Drive. So we'll be removing those. The Veterans Drive signs will be removed, but the Silverado sign will still remain in place. So that's the purpose of this, repealing this ordinance.
And Leon, you spoke to the representatives of Silverado, or did anyone, I know there was at least an attempt to reach out to them to get their feedback on that. Did anybody get that feedback?
I did not do that.
Okay. I see maybe Amber's gone. I'm not sure. Maybe she did. I thought I saw something going across. They were the ones who were asking for the stop sign initially, but those traffic patterns have changed. So it's not a change, it doesn't change the factors around this for me. I do think that the stop sign needs to be removed because it's just impeding traffic and is not necessary. But Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I know originally when we voted on this was during the construction of Burleson, so the traffic was being diverted out through Silverado, and there was an issue there. Unfortunately, now we have a different issue with Burleson complete. We have them back up on 150, and people are having trouble getting out of the other neighborhoods as well. So this is a way of maybe alleviating some of that by eradicating these stop signs and moving them out. But yeah, definitely the traffic backs up pretty heavily on 150. And our intent was to make these stop signs temporary when we first installed them. And that was for the purpose of the Burleson bypass.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that we actually, if we do approve this, that we do it and give staff direction to put some kind of notice on Silverado Drive that it's no longer a stop sign. Because while if you're going down Veterans and it's removed, maybe your instinct might be to stop, but that won't hurt anything. But if you're coming up on Silverado and you think that people on Veterans are going to stop and they're not, you might pull right out in front of them. So that's my concern here is that it's going to take time. And so we have the marquee signs, the digital signs that we use. That might be what we would, like what we do for the fireworks and, special events. That might be something we could put there as a flashing light or something. I don't know, Mike, so let me just ask you, what do you think we can do to make sure that people coming out of Silverado see that cross-traffic is not going to stop anymore?
I'll be working with TxDOT on that issue, and TxDOT's going to have a concern also about that same concern that you have, Mayor. So I'm sure they're going to help us with whatever signage and whatever signboards that we can put up to warn the residents that it's coming, and maybe set a certain date or a definite date as to when that's going to happen. So we'll also have the ability to get the message boards from the county too, if we need those.
Okay.
So I'll be working with both agencies to try to make sure that we do that correctly.
Yeah,
Give them
Mayor.
plenty of notice.
We also have a policy that dictates a lot of different types of messaging that takes effect when we do traffic changes. That involves everything from the message boards to social media posts to neighborhood association notification, and we'll be putting all that in play for this.
Okay, yeah, it's going to need it. I think it's going to be dangerous. All it takes is one person not paying attention, thinking that traffic's going to stop. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Leon, just real quick, what is the speed limit on that stretch of road?
It's changed. I think it was 45, and they were trying to lower it down to a lower speed, but I'm guessing, council member, on that speed.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if we could lower the speed just to, I remember we were going to do a study on it. I don't know if we ever lowered the speed there, but if this is something we could do now, that would be great, because in case we do have that accident, it'll be at a lower speed, not at a high rate.
My understanding is they did run speed tests on that section, and they were going to do some lowering of the speed limit. So I'll check with TxDOT and see what the status is on that and let you know.
Thank you, Leon.
Councilmember Tobias.
You just answered my question. I really think I hope there's not, because I was in that area not too long ago just trying to get out of Dollar General, and the traffic there, the speed was just ridiculous. So I can just see it now. There's no stop sign, and somebody trying to pull out of Silverado and you've got people going down 65, probably 70 miles an hour, because they know there's no longer a stop sign there. So that's a huge concern now. I had thought the whole idea was to slow the traffic down, but now it seems like, the backup is there, like, from Burleson and so forth. So that's going to be my biggest concern is just now that people have a free-for-all, they see an open road all the way down to Veterans and First. And I can tell you right now, that's exactly what's going to happen. Those people are just going to fly down that road. And people that are on that corner of Silverado trying to pull out, not knowing there could be an accident happen. Just pulling out of the post office is sometimes dangerous enough. Let's be real about this. So I know we're trying to look at alleviating traffic, but again, and people are saying that there's backup. Well, I'd rather have the traffic control versus the flow, because again, I'm just looking out for the public safety on that end. Even if it means that we would have to slow traffic down, and if it just takes an extra 5 minutes to get where you're going to, I'd rather do that than have an accident to where somebody's life is lost. Because that area is just like a highway. And I think everybody knows what I'm getting at.
That's a fair point. Other commentary? Councilmember Flores-Cale.
My daughter goes to that school, and so I know both the heartache and the safety around those two stop signs. And even though it is inconvenient, I agree with Councilmember Tobias. I would rather be safe than sorry. And my initial question was going to be, why did we put it up to begin with? And it sounds like the people in that neighborhood requested it.
Because of the construction in Burleson blocking the road. It changed the patterns and was causing a backup. And now it's like 1/10 of the traffic that it was at that time.
But we still have no insight on how they feel about it. I mean, we can say that that's what it is and that's they're ready to let it go, but we don't live there, so I can't. I'd like to know.
Well, I drive that
think.
intersection twice daily, so I'm very familiar.
Look,
with
it's not convenient, but stop signs are not for convenience, they're for safety. And so if we want to take it down because it's a safer place, that's one thing. But if we want to take it down because it's really backing up traffic, that's another.
Yeah.
But so my question would be, are stop signs for safety, or are they for helping vehicles to get out of the neighborhood because they can't because of cross traffic? The slowing of traffic via stop sign is not a planning practice that you're likely to find. That's done by speed limits or just other things. So
I think a stop sign makes it a controlled intersection. And so
the intersection is what gets controlled. So yeah, that's a safety element. But as far as the speed, like in other words, eventually it would become a traffic signal and it would be a green light, in which case people would be driving the speed limit. So if it's the speed limit that you're concerned with, you need to address the speed limit. Stop signs is like a end-around way of, getting, and at the time it's just, and it also can cause people to rush through, be doing lots of rolling stops if it doesn't actually address the issue, which is you don't need a stop sign when there's just very few vehicles coming out of the other side. But Leon, do you have commentary on your thoughts of?
Typically, when you install a multi-way stop, there's a number of warrants that you look at, and usually you have equal amounts of traffic. You try to have equal amounts of traffic from each leg of that intersection. In this particular case, we don't have that amount of traffic coming from Silverado that matches what's on 150. So today, if they ran a warrant to see if it met that multi-way stop requirement, I don't know if it would meet because we just don't have enough traffic coming off of Silverado. So from an engineering standpoint, it probably doesn't warrant the north-south stop signs there at this point. But I understand council's members' other points that traffic is stopped, you're not going to get killed. That's for sure. But then we have the citizens that are going north and south. They're having to wait an extra few minutes, and that just bothers them. Mm-hmm. They just don't want to wait.
Yeah, and to be fair, and not to get off this subject, but that brings up the great argument or the debates that I have when we're talking about stop signs over there off of Bunton and Lehman. Those people trying to get out of their neighborhood can take up to 45 minutes just to get to Parkway. And I know the people over here off of 150 is inconvenienced because they've got to stop at Silverado. But it's all over. And this is why when I'm advocating to see where we need to get stoplights versus stop signs, that's a lot of the points that I'm making for, especially east of Kyle, like the people that are trying to leave out of South Lake Ranch, people who are trying to get out of Lehman and Steeplechase. They're backed up just as much. And so it's just everywhere. But again, in those areas, it's more controlled because you have neighborhoods. The 150, it's a straight shot. It's a straight, people fly at least 60, 75 miles an hour. Then they come to a stop. They control their speed. They know they have to stop. And then they can pursue on through. So that's kind of where I get my debate on that about the stop signs and stoplights. I mean.
All right. I think we've discussed it, and just take a vote on it. So I will motion to approve. Motion by Mayor, second by Councilmember Bradshaw. Is there discussion on the vote? Our motion, roll call vote.
Parsley,
Yes.
Ellison,
No.
Bradshaw. Aye. Mitchell,
Aye.
Flores-Cale,
Nay.
Rizzo,
Aye.
Tobias.
Nay.
All right, motion carries 4-3. All right, next up, agenda item number 18, first reading, an ordinance amending chapter, by the way, that is first reading, so it will come back. An ordinance amending Chapter 53, zoning of the City of Kyle, Texas, for the purpose of rezoning approximately 15.542 total acres of land from Retail Services District to Planned Unit District Mixed Use PUD for property located at 5839 Kyle Parkway. This item does have a public hearing. Mr. Atkinson.
Will Atkinson, Interim Director of Planning. The applicant has actually requested a delay of consideration to August the 16th. So if y'all would be willing to consider keeping the public hearing open until that time and vote accordingly, that staff supports the request as well.
All right, does anybody have an objection to opening the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? All right, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this item until the August 16th council meeting.
Second.
Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 19, first reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 53, zoning of the City of Kyle, Texas, for the purpose of amending Section 53-1230 zoning to add indoor firing range to the entertainment zoning district and amend the associated zoning use chart. Mr. Atkinson, this item also has a public hearing.
Will Atkinson, once again, Interim Director of Planning. So sometime back, we had the opportunity to have a discussion with you all about adding firing ranges along the I-35 corridor. And this is the result of that. And I'll explain a little bit why we came to the conclusion to put it in this zoning district as well. So we have a potential applicant who's wanting to have a firing range along I-35. An indoor firing range they're going to have with offices and a little retail shop as well. And our code, our zoning use chart, does not allow for that unless it's in the warehouse zoning district. As most of y'all probably know, the warehouse zoning district is one of two that we won't allow for anymore along I-35. And so as we started discussing it, we came to the conclusion that from both the OSHA recommendations from the SIC codes, which is standard industry codes, indoor firing ranges actually fall within similar categories as camps and amusement parks and what have you like that from that perspective. Additionally, one of the reasons why we were kind of more okay with the entertainment zoning district for this use was because the way it's written, uses in the entertainment zoning district are considered on a case-by-case basis from City Council. Now, per state law, the only way you can do a case-by-case basis when it comes to zoning is to do it through a planned unit development. So if anybody wants to have a firing range in the entertainment zoning district along I-35, then they have to come forward with a planned unit development, and it has to receive special consideration, and it'll have more robust requirements associated with it. So that's the direction we came from when we put it in, or requesting to put it in the entertainment zoning district. And that's essentially the summary of.
All right. Well, this item has a public hearing, so if there are no objections, I'm going to open the public hearing now. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. This item's pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Tobias.
Yes, sir. Mr. Atkinson, I see the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-1 to recommend the approval of this. You might have a reason why they voted or why one disagreed.
No, I do not believe Commissioner McCall made any sort of explanation as to why. She just voted against it.
Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. I'm just curious as to why in Texas we have to take this kind of vote. I'm just saying everybody likes their guns in Texas, so I'm genuinely concerned. So anyways, I'm in favor for it. I'm excited. I hope it's something like Austin has, going down 35 south by South Park. I think that is a really, really nice range. And my hope is that we can somehow allow our officers to use it, maybe at a discounted rate or something of the sort. It would be nice. Otherwise, I think this is a great idea.
Okay.
Councilmember Parsley.
I am very excited that I don't have to drive to Lockhart. So I'm just going to say that. Can I make a motion to approve item 19?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Parsley, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to say, yeah, definitely excited about this. I visit the range every chance I get in South Austin, and it's a great controlled setting. It has instructors that are there that are going to teach you the proper use of a firearm, and with so many people, now picking up firearms for the first time, it's great to have a setting where people would learn how to use and store those properly. For me, it's a safety plus for us, because these are professionals that are going to teach you how to store and how to lock up your firearms and how to use it properly as well. So I think this is a win for us as well. And yeah, I concur. I think this would be great, maybe having that range nearby where officers, I know the officers have a range, outdoor range nearby, but to have an indoor control when it's 100-something degrees would be pretty awesome. So thank you.
Councilmember Tobias.
Okay. Yes, I know we're really just discussing the zoning itself, but is there already somebody that we know that's interested in the city? I know he mentioned the company, but I know we're just changing the zoning.
You have to be
but
very
we're
careful
just-
how you answer that. That's why he's given that
It's
look.
because there's a lot of people out there that are hearing this and they see indoor firing range, and yes, we're in Texas, and the climate that's going on right now. If you can't, yeah, if you can't, that's fine, but it's just,
Not anybody specifically.
okay, that's
I
great.
can't respond to that part.
Yes, sir.
so.
Sounds good.
All right, anyone else? All right, I'll be the bearer of bad news. I'm going to vote against this particular piece. So I'm voting against it because I think that warehouse is an appropriate zoning category for firearms. I think it's in the appropriate category, and the fact that its warehouse is not allowed on I-35 goes to show, the situation. So if a proposal comes forward for a PUD, once this change has been made, that'll be a consideration that changes my vote at that time. So this isn't the actual applicant. This is whether it is appropriate to put firearm, or whether it's appropriate to put an indoor firing range as a category in entertainment, which by my account is an absolute end around of our code in order to do what we want to do. So just those are my comments. Councilor Bradshaw.
Yeah, I'm just going to push back on what you said, because thinking along the lines of the range and some of the other shooting ranges that I've seen around here, none of those buildings look like warehouse. None of those meet the warehouse criteria. And I think moving it to entertainment makes much more sense.
Fair enough. Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you.
Didn't really want to, wasn't doing that to bring it back, though. All right, next up, agenda item number 20. Consider impossible action to approve a resolution of the City Council authorizing and creating the Limestone Creek Public Improvement District in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code. This item has a public hearing. Ms. Amber Lewis.
Amber Lewis, Assistant City Manager for the record. You have a resolution in front of you for consideration. We've got a presentation from the developer team, if y'all would like to hear that. And then you also have your bond counsel team here to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions or comments? This item does have a public hearing, so if there are no objections, I'm going to open the public hearing now. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. It is now closed. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for your time, opportunity to present, and consideration for our proposed Limestone Creek Public Improvement District. I'd also like to say a special thanks to staff for all their hard work and guidance through the process. I'm Justin Belmore with Meritage Homes. Joining me tonight is Kevin Pierce, our PID attorney, as well as Patrick Bourne, our PID financial advisor. First time presenting, so bear with me. Thank you. All right, appreciate it. I believe you all have seen this slide about a month ago. We are still an Energy Star award winner and also an Avid Award winner for customer service excellence. This is our proposed land plan for Limestone Creek. And then here is the regional benefits. Pursuant to Councilmember Ellison's request, we routed a little bit more detailed summary of the regional benefits. Hopefully you've all had a time to receive that and review that. Just briefly, some of the contributions for this improvement district will be Waterstone Boulevard, building out the full scope of that cross-section of right-of-way through our property, as well as incorporating Goforth Boulevard, as well as additional storm drainage improvements that will benefit Quail Ridge subdivision. Also enhance amenities, parks and trails, and then also utilities. At this point, I'll turn it over to Kevin Pierce.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For the record, my name is Kevin Pierce. I'm a partner with Miklos Sinclair. We focus on public improvement districts. I want to take a brief opportunity, since we're just kind of starting this process. We were here last month for the approval of the development agreement for this project and the deposit agreement, whereby the developer has put up the money to pay for staff costs in reviewing the public improvement district. I wanted to take just a brief moment to talk about a couple of the kind of notice and transparency elements to this PID. Not a lot of citizens know what a public improvement district is and kind of the mechanics and how it works, or if it's going to affect them or how they're going to keep up with it. And so at the outset, I want to take just this moment to talk about all the ways that we're going to let people know what's going on throughout this process, because this is going to be a multi-step process over the course of several months. Tonight we're here to formally create the district. This does not create any obligations, it does not burden any property, it does not move any money. It draws a line on a map. So this is a very preliminary stage. If the council approves the creation of this district, the next piece that happens, we publish a notification in the newspaper so that everyone knows that a public improvement district has been created here. Further along in the process, when we get close to actually putting assessments on the property, and that's the point where property owners in the district are going to be obligated to pay, we will publish notices in the newspaper, as well as mail letters to all the owners of property who are going to be assessed, which is probably going to be the developer at that time. But there will be notice for that. Pursuant to the City of Kyle's PID policy, which you've all put in place for many years now to protect your citizens and to have a structured formal system, there is a requirement for PID signage at the entrances at points of ingress and egress for the district, so that anyone who goes in to say, hey, I want to go buy a house, I want to, this looks like a great neighborhood. Oh, it says it's a a public improvement district. I should ask the salesperson what that means when I get there. That signage is there clearly and prominently so that a motorist on the road can see that sign. Furthermore, the policy also requires that there be PID information in the sales center so that people who are prospective home buyers will have that information available to them before they even decide to go under contract in that, on that property. Finally, under some new state law, and which was already part of the process generally, when a home buyer goes under contract to purchase a house, they will receive a notification saying, you are in a public improvement district. You will be obligated to pay approximately this much money every year. They are required to sign that document at the time of contract, and then they will have to see and sign the same document again when they close. So there will be 2 times where they will see the specific dollar amount that they are going to be walking into so that they know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, they have to look at it, sign it, say, yes, I know I'm in a PID. Yes, I know I'm paying this money. That way there is very, very little chance of someone going, I had no idea this was going to happen. Through the developer's kind of standard practices, through state law, and through the city's PID policies, there is a lot of very rigorous protection to make sure that it's very clear what's happening here. And then finally, I want to talk about where our next steps are. Like I said, this is a multi-step process. There are a lot of pieces that go on here. And so here's kind of a walkthrough, generally speaking, of where we're going to be going after this. As I mentioned, there will be the notice of creation published if the council chooses to approve the district tonight. That kicks off the document creation process. Financing documents, bond documents. This project also includes a TERS, which was mentioned in the development agreement. Those documents will be generated and drafted and negotiated between the developer, your city attorney, your bond counsel at Norton Rose Fulbright, as well as your other consultants, Samco, your financial advisor, P3 Works, your PID administrator. A lot of highly sophisticated individuals and teams will be working to craft a document and a series of documents that both creates a good financing that is good for the project, good for the city, and good for the citizens who are going to be living in the project. The next time we come to see you guys will probably be for the creation of the TERS component. We'll be putting together that information at that time. And that's kind of going piece, it's the sister half to this project. The TERS and the PID are going to be walking hand in hand together. Then we'll be coming back again once we've negotiated the financial terms. Your PID administrator will put together the service and assessment plan, the preliminary document of that, which will outline the specific dollar amounts of who's paying what, where the money's going, what projects are going to be paid for, what improvements are going to be paid for. And then the TERS board that will be created will approve some of the finance documents for the TERS side, and then at the end everything comes together and we approve the financing documents, the TERS documents, bond documents, go through the assessment hearing, and ultimately approve the entire project and finance this deal. That's a lot of information and a lot of steps along the way, but I want to reiterate there will be multiple steps along this process where we will be coming back to this council to educate and inform you on the status of where everything is going, the status of the project, the status of negotiations, so that it will be as transparent a process as we can make possible, because in my experience working in this field, that's the most effective way to develop these projects is with a lot of close work with the city team and being as upfront in the process as possible. And so we are welcome. We welcome any questions. Again, I'm here to discuss the legal aspect. Patrick Bourne is here to talk all the finance and numbers, and Justin can speak to the development itself. But we are extremely excited to start this project. The City of Kyle is a fantastic place to do a project like this, and we think you have a fantastic team of attorneys and consultants that I personally very enjoy working with. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm actually going to make a request that we go into executive session. I have a question I need to ask our attorneys, and I'd like a counsel to be privy when they get that question. So just take us just a second. Thank you. All right. There was a public hearing. I already had the public hearing on this item. Is that correct? All right. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. If there are no objections, I'm going to reopen the public hearing. The public hearing is now open, and I'm going to make a motion to postpone this item until the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Second.
Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there discussion on the motion? We'll talk to you in just a minute. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, we're going to move forward, but if y'all want to talk to bond counsel, you can do that on your way out. All right, next up, agenda item number 21, consider possible action approving continued design for intersections at Kohlers Crossing and Marketplace Avenue and/or Kohlers Crossing and Kyle Crossing. Mr. Barba.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Barba, City Engineer. There you go. Mayor and Council, this item to do this work was approved back in March of 2022, earlier this year. And we asked CP&Y to look at two intersections in particular. One would be the Kohlers at Marketplace and Kohlers Crossing at Kyle Crossing. And in accordance with section 1162, I think, ordinance number 1162, I believe, they have to look at this intersection and see if a roundabout's going to be feasibly, something that they can actually feasibly build in this particular location. And they've done that. I'm going to try to explain what we're looking at. In your backup, there's a pretty lengthy preliminary engineering report. It's got some extra pages in it because of the blank pages, but please ignore those. The report's only about 64 pages long on one, 68 pages long on the other. So a lot of tables, a lot of charts. And so really, I just usually look at the conclusion or the recommendations. And these are done in a similar fashion. For example, they're giving us three alternates to think about or three options to look at. The first option, they're saying just put some traffic signals up at that particular intersection and just pretty much don't change much of anything in those intersections. The second option talks about adding left turn lanes and where it's needed. For example, at Kyle Crossing, most of that traffic moves from the going east goes to the north, and then going south, they go back to the west. So those are typically your traffic patterns that you see at that intersection. So they talked about putting double lanes in those particular intersections. The third option they looked at was the roundabout. I want to go through, this is Marketplace, I believe. Go up a little bit. And just to let you know, Marcel Strawn is on the virtual. He's available to ask some questions. If you need to ask him any questions, he's the designer of the preliminary engineering report. And Grant, if you could move back to the top, this is Marketplace. Let me start with Marketplace first. Their first proposal for the interim solution is to just install traffic signals there. And they estimate the construction cost is $360,000. There is no right-of-way needed for that particular recommendation. And that does not include design. That's just the construction cost. The second option for just reconstructing that intersection and adding turn lanes will require some right-of-way. And they're estimating about $1.7 million for that. The right-of-way, additional right-of-way would be, they're estimating it about $125,000. So you're looking at $1.8 million for that intersection improvement. The third option is a roundabout, and that one's estimated at $3.7 million plus about another almost $500,000 for right-of-way acquisition. And in their summary, or their recommendation, they do not recommend the roundabout in this particular area. And if I could ask Marcel to share his screen to show us the roundabout.
All right, so Leon, just to be clear, are we talking about Kohlers and Marketplace with
Yes,
this?
sir.
Or are we
Yes,
talking about
yes.
Kohlers and Kyle Crossing?
This is Kohlers and Marketplace.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if he's able to share. There he goes. Okay. This is a roundabout that's proposed at Marketplace at Kohlers Crossing. Notice how it encroaches into the public safety building. And there's a little bit of an issue with RSI right there. So what you do on this one is you'd have to push it further north. If you look to the north, there's quite a bit of drop-off on the north side. So now you're starting to really add cost to this project. So in this particular case, they do not recommend the roundabout. In fact, what they recommend is the interim solution. And the interim solution would mean that we would go with the new traffic posts and nice traffic posts. They would be either black, powder coated, or they would be the nice looking traffic poles that you would see in areas where you want to have a really nice facility there. They wouldn't be the standard corrugated, the metal finish that you have. So if we do something like that, that would be what we want to put there. I noticed that on the lower right corner of that intersection, there's a traffic signal that's going to be mounted there. I know I was asked to see if we could put one on the other side of the street, but the mast arm is just, it'd be too long. We're over 60 feet. That would take a really terrific structural design to come up with a mast that would reach across that many lanes and the median. So they're proposing to put that particular foundation on the side where the police department building is going to go. So this is their proposal. And again, no right-of-way is required, but that was their cost estimate to do that particular intersection improvement. And again, as time goes on and we study these intersections and we get more development in there as these roads open up, we want to look at possibly later doing another traffic study to see maybe we do need to add more traffic lanes in there. So that would be at a later phase. Now we'll drop over to the Kyle Crossing at Kyle Crossing. This is at Kohlers Crossing and Kyle Crossing. The same thing here. You had 3 recommendations. The first one is just install some traffic signals there, and their estimated cost is $332,000. And it calls for a little bit of right-of-way acquisition. I think about $5,000 if I remember correctly. And then on alternate 2, they're adding left turn lanes again, more left turn lanes in that area. And now you're going to start needing more right-of-way, and their cost is around $2.1 million, and plus the cost of the right-of-way, which I believe is around $123,000. I'm sorry, wrong page. $326,000. So it starts going up in price, obviously. On the roundabout, they do recommend that we could use a roundabout there. It's about $3 million plus right-of-way, which is about $374 million. But again, they're going back to recommending the first option, which is just to do an interim installation there. If we go with these interim installations they're recommending, we're talking about having something in place by sometime next year. If we're looking at these other more expensive and more detailed options, we're looking at 2 or 3 years before they get in there, because we'll have to buy right away, we'll have to do the design, and then it'll take a while to construct those particular types of intersections. So their proposal is to, they're recommending on both of these intersections to use interim solutions. On the interim solution at Kyle Crossing, I don't foresee us putting any fancy improvements there, because that intersection may change as time goes on. We're looking at extending Kyle Crossing over I-35. That may be a possibility depending on the bond election. And so at that point, traffic patterns are going to change. We know that. So that's why we don't want to spend a lot of money on that intersection this time, but we do want to provide traffic control at that intersection at this time. So, Council, my question to you is, you have a 4th option, do nothing. There's a 4th option. But my question to you, Council, is let me know what you want to do. If you want to move with any of these options, then what I'll do is I'll get a proposal from the consultant to move forward with that recommendation, and then we'll come back to you with that proposal and let you know what that cost is for that.
Well, I think the answer would be do nothing at Marketplace, because I think that until Marketplace extension is completed, which we have time to decide on Marketplace, that intersection, because there's no traffic there.
That's correct.
As far as cross traffic. So we could take that one off, but the other one is, during rush hour in particular, is backing up, 50 cars deep.
I go through that intersection every afternoon, yes, sir.
Yeah, so that one's pretty rough. Does anybody have it? So you're asking, so just to be clear, what you're asking from us is to give you direction to proceed in a particular way, and then you'll bring back proposals, or?
That's correct, Mayor, yes. If you tell me to just stop on Marketplace, we will stop. We'll refine the preliminary engineering report, get it cleaned up and closed out, and that'll be the end of that for now. If we want to move forward on Kyle Crossing, let me know that you want to get a proposal from the consultant so that we can go ahead and install get a design to install the temporary interim signals there.
Okay.
And then I can get a proposal from the consultant, bring that back to you for a recommendation.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? My recommendation would be the interim signals at Kyle Crossing. I think that'd be helpful. So I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to do nothing at the intersection of Marketplace and Kohlers, and to proceed with option 1 at the intersection of Kyle Crossing and Kohlers for temporary traffic signals.
Second.
Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 22, task force update on alternative traffic calming measures to be considered in single-family residential zones. Mr. Barba.
Mayor and Council, Leon Barba, City Engineer. We've had 3 meetings so far on this particular issue, and I'm going to defer to Councilmember Ellison, but I think we're wanting to get a postponement so we can come back to you with more information. There's quite a few issues that we need to work through on this one.
Yeah, Mr. Barber pretty much summed it up. I think that we have had 3 meetings, Councilmembers Tobias, Rizzo, and I, with the staff that we aligned for the task force. I think the more we talk about this and navigate through this, the more we see what really we're overtaking here, because we were tasked with 2 separate entities here. One, addressing our subdivisions as they are now and what solutions there can be, and then what proposals we want to bring back to the council for future developments as well and standards. We have talked about a number of different things. We had a member from the city of Austin come in and tell us about their traffic calming measures and what they do with speed pillows or speed cushions. We've kind of interchanged those terms, but they're not the speed bumps. We have metrics we have that we've looked at. We have certainly consulted with emergency services and gotten their feedback on those different things. But there's just a number of things still we want to iron out. And as y'all can imagine, it's been a busy month. We have conducted 3 meetings, but as I outlined and as Mr. Barber outlined, there are just some more things we'd really like to get buttoned up before we bring a presentation forward to council. And so we would like to make a recommendation to bring this back at the 2nd meeting in August. And that's my motion.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Ellison, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, that we postpone this item until the 2nd meeting in August. Is there discussion on that motion?
Yeah, just a quick discussion, just to thank staff for all their hard work and for all the research. They've been bombarding us with a lot of information that I truly appreciate it, because when we make a final decision, it's going to make it a lot easier. So thank y'all all.
All right, anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 23, discussion of possible action regarding an update to the city's personnel policy regarding a capped payout of unused accrued sick time upon retirement or departure of employment without cause with the city. Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. So this policy was brought to my attention during 2 different times. The first one was on June 8th when I went to Michelle Jones's retirement. And we just had a short conversation. I spoke to her about the departure with the city and asked her if there's anything she'd like to see differently. And she mentioned that she was unable to donate her time, her unused sick time. And so I went and I looked, and it looks like the donation can only be done upon to a specific person. And so, and it came up again in an email regarding payout for unused sick time. And so I looked at it, and initially I was not in favor, because I felt like if it's going to benefit just a single person at that time, I wasn't too sure I was in favor of it. And then the idea came across that maybe we prorate it back to the beginning of the year for the people that have left the city that I feel that may have earned some unused sick time. And so just some guidelines that I was looking at would be 5 years of service. It would be capped at 144 hours, which I think that kind of coincides with section 5.07, number 6B, whereas an employee can utilize unused sick leave, not use it, but be paid out. And then also a requirement that they would not be fired for cause. And so those are my outlines, and I'm just curious to know what other people think. I will say, it occurred to me when I found out that there are workers for the city of Kyle that work in the sun outside for 4 to 6 hours a day that make $15 an hour, that somehow we need to offer them a benefit that wouldn't cost too much to the city, but that would maybe encourage them not to leave and show that we appreciate that they are here. And so that was another factor that I factored in to me bringing this to the dais.
Okay, does anybody have any thoughts? Or just Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely could get behind something like this. I would even probably go forward as maybe even allowing people to use their accrued sick time or if you're calling it sick time or if you're calling it vacation hours, to maybe even allow them to use that towards their retirement at the end. I know that the city of Austin has something similar like that where people have accrued all this time and they've got like 4 months to retirement and they're able to use that for those 4 months to retire 4 months early. So it's something, just some food for thought.
Staff have thoughts on this proposal?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Awesome.
This is a slide too. Mayor, Council, once again, for the record, Jerry Hendrix, Acting City Manager. We've put together some information just to kind of give you a little bit more perspective on where we are with our sick leave and our vacation and accruals and how that gets paid out. We're also planning on bringing some personnel policy changes to the budget workshops that might also address part of this. I will share my screen for this just to give you, if I can find it. Just to give you some background on what our current policies are. So our vacation leave right now, it's based on the number of years of service. If you've been with the city for 1 to 9 years, you accumulate 80 hours per year. If you've been with the city 10 to 19 years, you accumulate 120 hours per year. 20 plus years, 144 hours per year. The max you can accumulate and accrue for 1 to 9 years is 160 hours. For 10 to 19 years, it's 240 hours. And 20 years, it's 288 hours. When you leave the city with those vacation accruals, you're able to take those with you. The civil service employees, police officers, the sworn police officers, they accrue across the board 120 hours per year, and the max they can accrue is 400 hours, and they take that with them when they leave, as long as they leave in good standing. For sick leave, regular employees currently accrue 96 hours per year. They can accrue up to 480 hours a year. If they leave, they do not get to take that with them. There's no current program where they can donate that. Typically, you have to donate that towards a particular person or cause. Civil service employees accrue 120 hours per year with no limit.
But the same rule that they can't take it with them if they leave?
I think they can take it with them, and it's capped at 720 hours.
Okay.
Civil service can take it.
Right, up to.
Oh, there it is, final slide.
So the payouts are as outlined in the slide, and we kind of already went over that. So, and we also did a study on what other cities in our area provide, and you can see that for the most part, we are behind in what we offer our employees in terms of vacation and sick leave benefits and the potential payouts when they leave in good standing. So we're open to direction from council. My first recommendation would be to let us bring forward our recommendations during the budget workshop. And we'll probably lean heavily on the information we've accumulated for this presentation to develop those. Or if you wanted to provide us direction right now, we can implement that into our recommendations as well.
I mean, you're saying your intention would be to bring a policy forward.
Right, we were already working on similar things, and this was part of it. We just haven't finished it yet.
Okay. Does anybody have thoughts?
That's
Councilor Tobias.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours for the civil service and then of course the sick. But the reason why those hours get added up so fast is or just add up is because civil services, like your police officers, they're constantly on duty. They accumulate a lot of vacation, a lot of sick, but a lot of times they're not able to take half of that, not even as close to all these hours that you see right here. They're always on duty. There's a incident that happens, they don't do the 8 to 5 and hit the gate, and do your 8 and hit the gate, as they say. They got to stay behind. And so I can see how some people will look at it like, well, how come they get paid out versus the other? It's just, unfortunately, just a different career on that end, There are public servants on that. I know it seems a little, some people will look at it as unfair. We had the same debate a couple of years ago with us in the county. But so what you're saying right now is that you're already developing some kind of new plan for this budget to work in what Councilmember Flores-Cale's kind of trying to get at, to have discussions about capping certain accrual sick time. And if somebody is to say, I've got 400 sick hours or whatever it is, I like to just donate it not just to one person, but into a pool of employees, and then the people that need it, let's say they have FMLA or they have an emergency, or if they need it, they can qualify for a certain amount of those
I'm not
hours.
sure that we can do that particular thing, but we're looking at it. What we are looking at is adjusting the accrual rates and adjusting the payout policy, in addition to some other things that we'll bring for you to enhance our employees' benefits. And I'll also add, what you say about the police is very true. But generally across the board, all of our departments operate very lean, and we have the issue of taking vacation time is an issue across the board. And with COVID, we've had to learn to not muscle up and come in sick anymore. So we do have a lot of employees that have large accumulations of sick leave and vacation time because we're not able to take those because we operate so lean. So we want to address that and make it more fair across the board, not only with our sworn staff, but with our civilian staff as well.
Yeah, it just, on a personal note, that's the reason why a lot of times when there's events in the city, and if you may not see me there, or if it's something at the chamber or a meeting during the day, it's because with my career, I'm not able just to take those vacation days. I'd have to sometimes ask many, many months in advance if approved, which I understand that, but again, there's two different types of variances here. When you have our police force that's always constantly, you're 24/7 no matter what. You may be off shift that day, but if they need you, they call you in, you're on the clock. And that's just the nature of the beast with the police department. So hopefully you can come back with something, and then maybe we can discuss it even more.
We'll do
Thank
that.
you.
Councilor Flores-Cale.
Thank you. And I apologize. I wasn't trying to compare apples and oranges as far as police officers, because I also want to remind people, my mind goes to the Parks and Rec Department when it comes to this, because they work every single holiday. Those parades that we love, the 4th of July that we love, they don't get to go celebrate it. They are physically working. So although I have the utmost respect for the police officers having to work, working is working, and it's physical labor, and it's them out there, and maybe it's even admin working through budget season. When you work for the government in a city, you are working all the time. All the time. And I believe our city kind of lacks benefits, and if this is a way that we can somehow give back, that's not going to be super costly to the city, and it can help us retain, because my fear is when people get ready to retire or leave, they're going to immediately start taking their sick time. Why? Because they're not going to get paid for it. So if we can kind of alleviate that issue as well by offering them a capped amount of time, I'm okay with that, and I'm on board with that. Again, For me personally, I feel like we need to maybe retro it from the first of the year, because I don't want any one person to benefit from this. I want it to be, it should have been like this from a while ago. That's my personal opinion. Going back, I think, I don't know if Sandra could tell us how many people that would affect and how that would look cost-wise. If we can get a comparison from retro to, current, that would be helpful. And
We can bring that back.
okay, yeah, I would like to look at that as well. So, yeah, for me personally, if we can have things like the certain amount of service years, so maybe 5 years. I know it's 10 years to get it upon death or like disability, but I think that's a lot. Waiting 10 years is a long time. I think 5 years, you can kind of get tenured in. And then a capped amount of hours. And then, of course, not for cause, but just because, you leave or you retire. So those are the things I would like to see. I don't know if there's anything anybody else would like to see, but I would appreciate that.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion for staff to bring back a policy with the 5 things I talked about being retroactive, 5 year, minimum service capped, and then not fired for cause. Just bring that back and for us to review.
Second.
Do you want to bring that back at a council meeting or at the budget workshop?
Budget, yeah, we have a budget meeting this weekend even.
Right, yeah.
Do you want it this weekend or do you want it on Thursday next week?
Can you, my question to you is, can you do it by this weekend? I don't want to, no? Okay.
You want it by this
Okay,
weekend?
that's great honesty. So yeah, if you can bring it back by not this budget, but the second budget session, that would be great.
We're going to shoot for the session on the 28th.
All right.
I appreciate it.
So the motion's made by Councilman Flores-Cale, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, that we bring, that staff brings back a proposal for proposed policy for the issues that Councilman Flores-Cale stated, and that it comes on the budget workshop for the 28th. Is there discussion on that motion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a couple of final thoughts, comments. Yeah, Councilmember Cale, I definitely agree with you. There's a lot of our staff that works hard. I think about during the snowpocalypse of our public works being out there in the freezing weather and working diligently, trying to bring services back on. I think about the IT department when we had the fire here, and they're sitting out here on the side of the building in these little desks out in the elements and trying to get us back online services, allowing the city to function. And yeah, definitely, our city staff's amazing. I mean, from the top levels down to those that are down on the ground, just working really hard in the weather. So yeah, finding something to make sure they know that they're not forgotten would be great. So thank you.
All right, anyone else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 24, discussion and possible direction to form council compensation committee per the city charter and to direct said committee to recommend best practices for council expense reimbursements as part of their compensation tasks. This is my item. I want to read out the section 3.09 of the charter, just so that we can all have it read. I don't know, I'm not going to assume that everyone's read it just because I posted this item. And I want to also remind, this section was almost entirely written in 2019, presented to the voters in 2019, and passed overwhelmingly by the community. So just as this is somewhat fresh. Each member of the council shall receive as compensation for their services the salary established by ordinance adopted after 2 public hearings and approved in the budget. Changes to council salary shall only be considered once every 3 years and shall be considered only after a recommendation is made by a council-appointed committee. Meetings of said committee shall be held in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Salary adjustment approved in accordance with this section shall be included in the proposed budget for the subsequent fiscal year, and the effective date of the council salary adjustment shall be for the first day of the fiscal year for the budget in which the salary adjustment is included. Council is prohibited from amending a budget to adjust council salary. A member of the council that is absent from one or more meetings in a calendar month shall forfeit an amount for each absence that is proportionate to the number of council meetings held in that month. Members of the council shall continue to receive the salary established in accordance with the prior version of this section until their compensation is changed in accordance with this section. Members of the City Council shall also be entitled to reimbursement for all necessary and approved expenses incurred in the performance of their official duties. There shall be provided in each annual city budget an amount for the expenses of the mayor and for each council member. The City Council by ordinance shall provide a method for determining what expenses are reimbursable and what requirements must be met to receive reimbursement. No staff or assistant shall be provided for any member of the City Council. So that is like 4 times as thorough as what it was before 2019. And I want to apologize because I've known that we're at our 3-year anniversary. So this was passed in November of 2019. We formed the committee around this time in 2000. I'm sorry, I guess was this, do I have my dates wrong? We are at the 3-year anniversary, correct? 2020, 2021, 2022. Yes, okay. So the time has come for us to reform the committee per the charter, and it's something that we do only once every 3 years. But I obviously, with all the discussion that we've had around expenses and reimbursements, something that's kind of felt challenging is that, you know, I think this body is trying to determine what an eligible reimbursement is, or what that should look like, or what form that should take. There's been communication about state law, making sure that we're following the law, which we want to make sure that we do, but also looking at, because there are questions that I have and statements that I want to make as it relates to reimbursements and expenses, because I would say that for myself, I probably only seek reimbursement for maybe 10% of the total amount of expenses that I could. For example, 80% of my cell phone is used for city business. I conduct a lot of my meetings remotely at home. Without internet, I would be virtually disabled. I would think many of the council members would feel the same way. And I'm not making recommendations for what that should look like, but it's almost outside the scope, and there's a reason why this charter provision was written the way that it was. It allows for staff and a committee that we form to engage on these topics and to make recommendations back to us. Provides for accountability and transparency in that manner. And so my recommendation was going to be that we go ahead and get this committee formed. We're right in the middle of the budget preparation season. And then also task them, and one thing I didn't put in the heading here, but I would also like to task them with providing us with cost centers, which I'm not sure if that's being proposed in this budget, but as I read it, it says that there should be, I'm sorry, I'm going to read it. There shall be provided in each annual city budget an amount for the expenses of the mayor and for each council member. That's not something that's really clearly defined in our budget, where each council member has their own cost center. But the way I read it in section 3.09, that could be something that we put in there as well. So my hope was to have us form a committee. The way the committee would be formed, like it was last year, would be each of us make a nomination. We have them meet and go through it. Because I think staff has felt like staff wants to have involvement, but at the same time, they don't want to have the final say. Staff recognizes that there is a big difference between city council and expense reimbursements and staff policies related to reimbursements. There's just a lot of factors that are different. A committee that we would create could provide the go-between to allow for several hours and several meetings devoted specifically to this topic. So that's what my recommendation was going to be. And then they could give us their recommendation on what kind of policy that we should adopt related to reimbursements, expenses, and the like. What should be authorized, what should not be authorized. Is it appropriate for us to take reimbursements of things like cell phones or vehicles or fuel, and they could weigh in. So that would be my thoughts. I would propose that we have nominations we could bring them forward at the next meeting that we have, which I think we have a meeting on Thursday, What is our meeting on Thursday?
We have a meeting next Thursday, and we have a meeting Saturday.
This Saturday? Yeah, we could just bring forward the nominations on Saturday and then give some outlines for how often, they can decide how often, how long they want to meet. But there is sort of an end date in order for it to comply with the charter and be included in the proposed budget. So it just has to come by second reading of the budget. And do you know when that date is? Final reading of the budget.
I do not know, but Pervez knows when the budget's scheduled to be approved finally. I think it's by the end of August.
All right, so there's 6 weeks, so there's time, 5 to 6 weeks. There's time for a committee to make those recommendations. I think it also could help potentially intensify the conversation that we might be feeling here on the dais. Councilmember Parsley.
Thank you. So if we were to approve the creation of this committee, how would this affect item 25?
Well, that's up to us. So there's been a proposed credit card policy. There's a draft that's out there that was emailed to us, but there's just a lot of layers and elements to that I think merits some pretty serious discussion. And I'm not sure that us discussing our own reimbursements, what is and isn't a reimbursement, is really consistent with the spirit of the charter. So that's where my thoughts came. I'm not saying it's not. We certainly could go that route. But, for one, I mean, maybe our finance department can, the issue that started all this was not submitting receipts. I do not believe that has happened or is happening at all from this dais. So as far as the pressure from trying to change some current action related to submitting receipts, it's not really an issue that we face. So I don't necessarily sense the urgency. If we pass a policy without really thinking it through, we miss an opportunity to have a more substantive discussion about reimbursements and expenses and compensation. So my recommendation would be to have this body provide a policy recommendation for us that considers what is an authorized expense, what is not an authorized expense, what form would those reimbursements should they take. For example, is if we are incurring fuel charges and vehicle wear and tear, should we be expensing a percentage of those things? And what should that look like? And if not, should that be an allowance that we would have in a cost center? And staff can go into detail discussing the different pros and cons of those items with the committee. The committee who does not stand to benefit or not benefit from it can take a removed view, which is, they did, by the way, 3 years ago when the committee reviewed all this. Councilmember Tobias was on that committee. They did a great job, I think, of really going through and recommending various things. There were people on the higher end, people on the lower end, and ultimately they sort of compromised into a middle and brought forward a really well thought out recommendation to the council. And that council was pretty instantly, it was adopted ultimately. But it provided a path for lots of community input and feedback so that there's a lot of transparency in that. And so I would think Councilmember Tobias would agree that was very transparent, the way that we went about it. Even if everybody didn't agree on the amounts and the dollars, it was transparent. And it allowed for community members to weigh in. This whole section reads to me, the way it reads is it's designed to put restraints on us so that we're not the ones making our own determinations about some of these things, which is what I've heard this dais say over the past few times that this has been brought up. I just think maybe for me, I wasn't really considering the fact that the time has come for this committee, and so it seems to me like we should incorporate the reimbursement policy as sort of a primary task of the committee if we were to do that.
So I just read the item 25 backup material, and I think it's beautiful. I don't know what else can be added to that. I don't know if this was just a draft that we were supposed to vote on today, because it kind of ties up to what you're saying. That draft for item 25 has listed all the things that should be reimbursed, things that shouldn't be reimbursed. I don't know if that's something that we were going to eventually discuss, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because if we are gonna create a committee to see what the best practices are, who is gonna form that committee? Are we being appointed to do that committee? Are we appointing somebody else to be that committee?
Right, so by the charter, we are to appoint a committee once every 3 years to review our compensation. So that's what I was just reading out. So the way we would do it is each of us would have a nominee that we would bring forward all at
Okay.
once, and then we would take a vote to create the committee. That committee would meet, subject to the Open Meetings Act, publicly to discuss the proposal that's been brought forward and the merits and demerits of it, because I would have things I would want to push back on in that proposal. I'm not saying it's all bad, but it's designed as a sort of a staff document, and it puts restrictions on the council that I'm not so sure that the council necessarily wants to have put on it. But there should be a committee who takes a look at that and can make that recommendation. So, for example, if we have dry cleaning that we're for this particular, event that we do, should that be something that we allow for reimbursement? If there are fuel charges, how should we go about doing that? The particular fuel reimbursement policy that's in place is very cumbersome, and it's designed essentially for it to not be the case that you can have a fuel reimbursement. So if that is not the case, if council members are spending a lot, council members don't have offices. So if I have 10, 15 meetings in a week, I'm either using my own personal internet, my own personal vehicle, my own personal phone to perform the duties of mayoring, and the council would be an exact same position, I would assume. So I would think that it would be appropriate for the committee to weigh in on all of that and to make a recommendation. So if we were going to follow that path, it seems like adopting the policy before we set them out to take a look at what the policy should be doesn't really make sense. But that's just my opinion on it. I would rather have a committee discuss it than us up here try to discuss what is and is not appropriate for reimbursement.
I'm sorry, I'm asking more
That's okay.
questions.
That's fine.
It's just all
Okay.
tied up. So will we be appointing somebody like we did with Ethics Committee?
Correct. Just like the Ethics Committee. Everyone gets their own nominee, but it's subject to confirmation from the entire council.
And will they be able to work with staff? Because I
Yes.
really would like for that proposal that we just got, I would stick to that 100% if I could. Because I just read it, and I think the only thing that I thought I want is paper for my printer, because I print everything in order to write stuff down. I don't know if city can give me paper, and I don't have to buy it. That would be fine with me, but, so that's what I'm wondering. I read through the whole thing. If I could heart it, like on Facebook, you like stuff, I could have done that, but, so I don't know. If this has been done before, who was part of the committee 3 years ago? Did they do the credit card policy together back then?
No, at that point, they were just focused on compensation. In fact, I think they made recommendations on, potentially on allowances, I'm not sure. But for example, if it was the case that there wanted to be a proposal for a fuel allowance, as opposed to saying you can, expense fuel, this would be your fuel allowance in order to comply with the law, that would be a recommendation that would need to come from this committee. And that's tied into credit card reimbursement. So it's kind of all connected. And so, for myself, I would like for there to be a committee. It removes us from this conversation and let them make a recommendation. I'm not saying I would like what the recommendation would be or that you would like what the recommendation would be, but it would allow for them to go into it in more detail, and we can assign staff, just like we did last time, to go and provide that. And I also think staff would probably prefer to work with the committee as opposed to coming up here in a council meeting and being in the middle of it all with us, because I think, we're all gonna be tempted to want to get staff to say certain things to support our worldviews, and staff would probably feel infinitely more comfortable meeting in public with a committee that we form, because that committee is not going to have sort of the emotion or the thoughts of previous council member actions that they're trying to correct, or maybe current practices that one council member or another is participating in that they don't agree with and they want to stop. It's a more fair, just process for us to go through with a committee, is my thoughts.
My last thing to say, I'm sorry, is that I agree, maybe having another person reviewing this will make more sense. The only thing I do want to ask is for Mr. Perez to be involved in the whole process.
I
Thank you.
agree with you. Councilor Tobias.
Okay. Ms. Parsley, for somebody who was actually on the committee, I could have answered all those questions. Yes, everything that Travis said, yes, city staff will be there, okay? We get to pick the people, we can appoint the people for the committee itself, okay? And they do meet without council. They have all the available resources available for them to use. Because again, I was selected to be on this first original compensation committee. Yes, Travis hit, Mayor Mitchell mentioned a lot of things that we did a lot of investigation, a lot of thorough research in other cities, compared the stipends that were proposed. There was different numbers. What was also proposed about, okay, was the idea of insurance to be added and so forth. So we reached out to several different cities and got with information about how much compensation does your mayor get? Do they get, allowance for travel and so forth on that end? So we were able to get all these numbers added up on that end. So I think when it comes to this committee now and these ideas of the credit card issues that we're having and the receipts and everything, I think it's now time, and this could be the perfect time to finalize all that and put it all in policy of what is required to receive a stipend, what kind of reimbursement councils are allowed to have, also what kind of limits if a credit card is still to be used or so forth, and also if what qualifies also for reimbursement. Is it office supplies? Is it a phone? Is it something to where we travel, meals, et cetera, all that? I don't think it was all specified when we had, possibly it may have been in there in the cover, but in detail. And then we also, Ms. Parsley, got input from the community. They were able to come up and do public speaking and address the committee, their support or their disapproval. And some gave their recommendations. So they were able to be bipartisan on that end with no council input. We were able to work together as a group and come up with different formulations on what would be best served for council members. I know a lot of the issues were, well, you're here just to serve. But at the same time, now doing the work itself, it is kind of like a full-time job, in that sense. So it's a matter of being fair as far as the compensation and so forth. But I think if we try to go ahead and go with this committee, everything that I know Council Member Flores-Cale has brought up with the credit cards, and also with everything, we can put it all together. And that policy that's there could be their blueprint. That could be their blueprint to where they can say, hey, look, there's something already in place, because we didn't have anything. We was just like, hey, writing down notes, let's just go with it and meet up. But now there's already policies in place. They can review the city credit card policy. They can review this. They can also review what the charter states and go ahead and they can make a better informed decision to say, hey, we have all our cliff notes together and we can all put something together that's fair, that's balanced, and then that way we can bring it as a proposal to council to vote on.
Councilmember Flores-Cale.
Thank you. I just got some responses to a few things that were said. First and foremost, the section 3.09 doesn't say it has to be a committee. It just says the city council by ordinance shall provide a method for determining what expenses and reimbursables and what requirements must be met to receive reimbursements. So although I'm not anti-committee, I'm just saying it does not have to be a committee.
I agree with that. That's correct.
Secondary, the last committee was not It was only for compensation, it wasn't for reimbursements. So there's gonna be a lot of different ideas and a lot of different communication. It's not gonna be as simple as just, hey, let's call San Marcos and see how much they make.
Is it okay if because I want to clarify why, if you want to finish, that's fine, but at that point, I just wanted to say why I think it is. You can finish if you would like. I can tell you want to finish.
No, it's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I know what
I'm
it
not
feels
trying
like
I'm not
to
trying
be
stop
thought
you.
and idea, so
Right,
I'm
I'm
okay
just
with
saying,
it.
so fuel, let's talk about fuel, right? So I have used the city card to reimburse myself for certain amounts of fuel depending on where I'm going or what I'm doing, right? It has been brought to my attention that that is probably not appropriate unless there's a mileage reimbursement that is followed in order to comply with state law. So I want to do that, so I've stopped using fuel. The end around, the fix to that would be, because the way the mileage reimbursement works, staff rarely use, I've heard multiple staff members who have that policy in place say it's too cumbersome, they don't use it. And there are other elements to fuel that outside of just your mileage. We don't have offices, so everywhere we drive is on our personal vehicles, and there's no way for us to be compensated but through this reimbursement policy. If it was the case that we wanted to go with a fuel allowance, that's a W-2 reported income, which is also compensation of some form, which we cannot give to ourselves without a compensation committee. So that's my point, is to say that, in my view, they are somewhat tied. And that's why I came to the idea of wanting to bring the committee forward. It was on the fuel issue, and realizing that only the committee can look at all of the factors and make a recommendation based on those factors. We can't do that, and staff can't just propose it in the budget for a fuel allowance.
Thank you. I will say, I think staff is a great resource because they see what we spend, they know what we spend, and they have a really good idea. So maybe if along the way we have this committee and we submit those credit cards, they can see what we spend.
I think they should definitely see each council member's expenses.
Because
agree with
I
that.
read it too, and I was a little hesitant. I was like, wait, no printer, no. But then I thought, okay, I could just order that. Mine was ordered through the city. So I didn't go and put it on the credit card, but that doesn't mean we can't have a printer or ink. It just means the way we should do it should be through the city.
Well, or another way of saying it is each council member has very different ideas about what they want to be reimbursed for. Because for me, I don't print or use that and wouldn't want that to be, we have just different opinions. So that's where the cost centers come into play. Essentially you have your own budget. It's very transparent. There's a certain amount of dollars within that budget that you can't exceed. And as long as you stay within that, you have a lot of discretion about what you would have. That's where what's authorized and not authorized. For example, for me, it might be, I wear a lot of suits for, in a lot of functions, and so dry cleaning might make a lot of sense. But for you, it might be printing because you prefer that. And I wouldn't want to stop you from being able to do that. And I wouldn't want you to stop me, but we should have a budget so that we all are in agreement on the amounts that we're allowed to reimburse.
Okay, going back.
I'm sorry.
So, no, it's okay. I want to just remind that this is not a full-time job. So the problem that we're gonna fall into is we're gonna get too hands-on. It's not a requirement that we have 10 to 15 meetings a week. That is optional. This job, when we took it, I know when you took it was what, $100 salary, stipend maybe even. It's now gone up. I think the charter and the way most cities work is they don't want this to be a full-time job. A city manager run is that way for a very particular reason. And so my fear is that if we start expensing these things, we're gonna start making this our life. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little jealous sometimes. I can't make it to all the meetings. I can't, because I work, I have kids. I wanna be there as much as the next person, but my life just does not allow that because I do work. And when I say that, that's not saying nobody else here works. I'm saying I have like a regular 8 to 5 job. And so 8 to 10, whatever, hours I gotta work that day. So I am limited. But again, this position was never meant to be a full-time. It was never meant to be a paid out. It was never meant to be 10 to 15 meetings a week. So although I can truly, truly appreciate that you have your hand in the businesses and you understand it, which I think is a benefit to the council, that's not a requirement. That is something that you choose to do. So I'm not sure if we should rearrange our pay based on the minimal people. Like I don't think anybody else does that. Maybe they do, but I certainly don't do that. And I try to be.
It depends on how you frame the question. If the question is framed to the public, do you think that council members should have to pay out of their personal resources in order to do their job? Then the public would say no. Like should you have to pay for, if you don't have an office and so all of your work requires data and an internet, and you email and use your data a lot, should that be something that the city should reimburse you for? Because while you are not a full-time employee or an employee, you are providing a service to this community that is of immense value, and there should be some level where you're not being forced to pay out of your personal resources, or that should be what the committee takes a look at, is my point. I do not anticipate that they're gonna come back with, some crazy thing. I wouldn't
Yeah,
think
my
that
fear is
they're
going to come
to.
back and it's going to be even stricter than what Perez.
It's very
gives us.
possible
And
that they might.
That is
they might
definitely
do
a
that.
possibility.
It is.
And I'm okay with it either way. I ran, and when I ran the first time, I knew what they made. I knew that there was very minimal. And I was surprised when I talked to Todd Webster and he told me how much he made. I was like, man, you've got to be doing that because you want to.
Right.
And ultimately, that's the truth. You keep those people that are doing it.
Well, nobody in this reimbursement policy is trying to get rich here.
No,
That's not
no,
what this is.
I understand that, but I
We're all
also-
doing it because we want to.
So I guess my comment to that is I already have internet. You know what I mean? So I don't want the city to pay for something that I already utilize. Cell phones, look, I kind of get it. I use my cell phone for city stuff all the time. But do we want a separate city cell phone? Because that may be what it's required.
Well, and then also if the city is reimbursing you for your cell phone, then is your entire cell phone subject to
Yeah.
open records?
Open records, yeah.
All kinds of, there's a reason
And
why
the answer
I-
to that would be yes. And so,
That's
yeah.
right. So I'm just throwing out concepts that I think this committee would be good to discuss.
Okay, so I am going to go back to what Councilmember Daniela Parsley said, and I would like, I'm okay with the committee, and I think there needs to be 7 if we all are represented. I thought I heard 4, but I think 7.
No, 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, that would be great, if we could each have someone as a
And they
representative,
can
a
use
nominee.
that as the template.
This will be the template, this will be the starting guidelines, they will work with Perez. But, with that said, I also think they need to see what we previously spent. They need to understand why, we use the cards the way we do. I'm very frivolous, but I do buy ink. I buy toner, and someone might look at it and be like, she spent $200 on toner, but here I sit with all this paper. So I agree. I think it's great to get a non-biased opinion. I'm okay with that so long as this amazing document that I'm assuming Perez created is a beginning starting point, and as long as Perez is there, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. We don't, Councilmember.
I just wanted to make a recommendation. I don't know, just mention to Councilmember Tobias. Instead of appointing another person, can we just let our ethics appointees take a look at this?
No, by charter, they cannot serve on any other committee. Ethics is like its whole separate thing. So it can be anyone but your ethics nominee, strangely enough.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I'm looking.
So
I just thought
I'm pretty
instead
sure
of
in the
just
charter
appointing
it says
somebody else.
that they can't be on any other committees. Councilmember Bradshaw, sorry.
I just want more time than to have a nominee by Saturday.
Okay,
That's rushed.
okay.
I would say maybe budget meeting next Thursday, maybe the next council meeting. But Saturday, I need to think about this, and not everybody is jumping, up and down to volunteer.
It's a public service to be on the committee.
Especially for a committee like this.
Can we give them dinners or breakfast or lunch? Kind of incentivize them.
Like our, what do you call it, lifeguards?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about Thursday? That gives you 9 days.
That's fair.
Is there, when we ask our nominee, is there some information that we can give them as far as hours or?
Yeah, and this isn't we can't talk to our nominee or the group. I would love to provide testimony to the group if they wanted it. They did that in the past. They called and asked questions. How many hours do you work a week? They wanted to know. Because they don't know the job. One thing that's unanimous across this dais is that no one knows the job until they get the job. And so I've heard those statements from every single person up here that it's different than you thought it was. And everyone out there likes to cast judgments until they get here and they realize that it's just there's a lot to it. And so hopefully we would correspond with them, but it's still going to be them who makes the recommendation. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about this, and, it's, I would love to have guidelines. I'd love to have something set in stone on what we can do purchase-wise, because I'm scared to use my card. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I drove in from Austin 4 times today and put gas out of my pocket, and my truck's $125 to fill it up. So I'm just scared to use my card because there's no set policy there. And I'm gonna be honest, I probably have used my card. I should have used my card a lot more, and I'm just scared to use it. With a set policy, I might feel a little bit more comfortable using it, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm scared to use that thing.
To be fair, I think what we're handed by Perez, this is every policy put together except for 2 things. So let's be clear, there are policies. Whether we know them and we're comfortable with them is another thing, but most of this comes from policies within the city. I think there's 2 things that are not. But other than that, there are policies, we just aren't aware of them. But I think it's a great idea to put them all in one,
Yeah.
to make it very clear.
Well, yeah, and I also want to be clear. I want a policy too. I know y'all may not think that I do. I do. I don't want us to rush to a policy that restricts the council in a way that we did not intend, or that is intended to be punitive towards one member or another. That's my whole point. But I think the clarity is good to give us that, because this needs to get put behind us. So, Councilor Tobias.
Yes, Mayor, I want to go ahead and make a motion to approve to select a council compensation committee that would also review all policies and procedures referencing compensation for council members, including credit cards, any reimbursements, and policies that fall in line with the charter.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there discussion on that motion? The committee's created, but with this vote, but there's still no one serving, so it's an empty committee. We'll still need to approve the nominees at the next meeting, or I'm sorry, on Thursday. And then what I would also say is we probably want to give them direction for when to bring back their recommendations so they have a deadline.
Just one last comment when we get on it.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just real quick, I know that we've talked a lot about the hours we put in. You know, when these first outlines first came out, I remember when I first got elected to council, I was at the $100 mark as well, and I was doing this for service. Since then, we've grown exponentially. We're now a city of over 50,000 residents. The times that we put in as a council, Councilmember Cale, Ellison, all the councils down, members to the left of me put in a lot of hours. And the reason why is we want to serve our residents diligently. It's not about, us going out and wanting to be hands-on. It's about what's required from us. Today, I was in 4 meetings, and it wore me out. I'm worn out today. It's not something that I sometimes enjoy because the meetings are long, but they have to be done. I mean, I know that people might think that we just show up for 2 meetings a month. It's not like that. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. I think about all the hours that I put into the Public Safety Center during the design phases and during the going before bond. I think about La Verde Park. I think about the Heroes Memorial Park and the park downtown here. Those things don't just happen. It's a lot of council members working together and putting a lot of hours as task force as well. And it doesn't come to fruition just on its own. You have to put in the time.
So if it's okay, I'd like to recommendation to amend the motion to go ahead and give that deadline now, and then also to incorporate the credit card policy as a framework.
Okay, second.
So I'd like to.
Second.
Okay, that was, we'll call that a motion by the mayor and a second by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Actually, I'm sorry. No, it wasn't a motion because I didn't give the date. So when is first reading of the budget and when is second reading of the budget?
August 25th is the second reading.
Which is a Thursday, and then I guess the final is on Tuesday, the 30th, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeez.
So I think the presentation, the recommendation should be on August 16th. So we can receive that and take action then, and it would be recorded in if there is any recommendation by the following meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to give direction to the formed committee to bring their recommendation by August the 16th.
Second.
And to use the draft credit card policy provided by the Finance Department as a framework for that discussion.
Second.
All right, there you go. There's the motion to amend in second. So we'll take two quick votes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion to amend carries 6-1. And then all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries 6-1. All right, next up is agenda item 25, update on the status regarding staff's creation of City Council's credit card policy. I think we've gotten the majority of that, so are we good to just move on?
Let's just move on.
Okay. All right, next up, agenda item number 26, consider authorizing execution of a professional services agreement with RSM US LLP in an estimated amount of $45,000 to conduct an examination of all city credit card transactions of and all expense reimbursements to City Council, City Manager, and other city staff incurred over a 5-year period beginning October 1st, 2017, and ending March 31st, 2022. I'd like to make a motion to motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by the mayor, second by Councilmember Parsley. Is there discussion on the motion?
Wait, that's a outside audit, correct?
Outside audit,
Okay.
45,000.
All right, thank you.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-2. All right, next up is agenda item 27, council review of the city charter. I added this at the very end because I realized, and I've always struggled to be the one to remind us, even though it's not necessarily my task to do so. The city charter compels us to review the charter, the council, once every 2 years and make recommendations for changes, and then to form a council committee, to form a charter review committee once every 5 years. We were in the 2-year window. It's weird every 2 years and then once every 5 because it's 2-2-1, 2-2-1, or actually it'd be 2-2-1-1-1. It's kind of, it's weird, but if there's recommendations that y'all want to make to take to the voters, we'll need that. We don't have to have that now, but there is some deadline by which we must make those votes. So I'd like for us to, maybe Jennifer can give us when that is, so that we can know if we want to. Otherwise, this is going to serve us as our review.
It's the second meeting in August, isn't it? Deadline for calling the election for charter amendment. If you're trying to get it on the November election.
So that's the 23rd, right?
I think so. Double check that.
Do we have a council meeting on the 23rd?
Well, I'm giving you.
Ah, that's right, okay.
So do we review this, or do we have a committee review the charter?
This is our 2-year time, so it's just if anyone on this dais wants to make a proposal to change anything in the charter, we can do so and take a vote and send it to the voters.
So that was my question, because I was reviewing the charter and I wanted to make a change, but for what I was reading, I believe, somewhere, it said that in order to propose an amendment before it goes to the voters, you will have to bring it to the dais, and after being approved by the dais, you will have to collect the signatures from the residents before it comes here, and then it will.
No, if a resident
vote.
that's a referendum. So if residents want to propose changes, they have to go through a signature process. The only way that charter changes get made are by majority vote of council. So even the charter review committee that gets formed once every 5 years, they don't have the power to send anything. Only we do.
Okay.
So in this case, once every 2 years, you may just make a recommendation for the language that you want to propose. Then we can discuss it, take a vote, and if it's passed, then it goes to the voters. We've done that many times through the years.
So that will have to come back on the 16th?
At the latest.
At the latest, okay. Can we bring any item on the following meetings to be considered to be proposed for the amendment, I guess, right?
Right, so the first meeting in August would be the 2nd of August. If you want to bring a proposal then, we could consider it, take a vote. And I don't know, is it required two votes to propose something to the voters?
Mayor, if you don't mind me just briefly interrupting, that may be kind of what we're talking about now with this compensation, the way it's written. Do you think that would be something that whatever recommendations they bring forward, that would actually be something that would go on the charter? That would have to go on the bond? No, I'm just saying.
I would prefer not, but, you know,
I mean,
we labored
I
over
mean, I
that.
know we're just
language.
pushing major for time right now. I'm just
Right.
throwing that out there.
Right.
Can I ask when the last time the 5 years was for the Charter Review Committee? Do we know?
That was 2020.
2020, okay, so in 2025. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.